Hello and welcome back to episode 7 now of Pact of the GM. I am delighted to be here with you and this collection of unlovable misfits who have all sworn their souls to me, the GM. We were actually hoping to have two people with us tonight that unfortunately can't be with us. The first is Keth, our regular player for Natara. She unfortunately is a little bit under the weather and can't be joining us. She's also the one who normally runs the stream, so today we are under my guardianship, so this might go horribly wrong, and if so, I apologise to everyone. The other player we were hoping to have was the wonderful Mr. Travis Willingham, but unfortunately, it seems he was apparently gifted an apple by an old woman, and we now believe he is awaiting the kiss of his true love. We hope he will find said person very soon. But we will carry on nonetheless, and before we get back into where we left off, it's good to remind ourselves as to where we've come from. And for this week, I believe it is Gavin who will be giving us a rundown on what happened last week.
So last week we were in the small town of Norcliffe, and after some shenanigans of finding someone's wife and returning them, and after some shenanigans of finding someone, Berend and Durgus managed to get themselves involved in a tournament. They did very well, although unfortunately, despite Baron's very hard push to win, they both lost to an orcish woman who we tried to recruit, who, however, didn't really seem interested. And we're a bit short on change because of it, although we did get a little hand-me-down from them. After the fight, we took ourselves out and had a little bit of a celebration before heading back to the boat, where, as I remember, Geronimo and Durgus completed a project on building a bunk bed, which seems to have been a bit worse for wear. But yeah, it was quite an eventful tournament for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. It was certainly not a huge amount to recap because not a lot of, I suppose, story elements were completed. But definitely there was a very good fight right at the beginning, some very quick combat, and a shame there as it came right down to the wire for Baron winning the whole thing. But we will be returning pretty much where we left off, which is with the rising of the morning sun, the return of everyone to the ship, having recruited both Rolt and his lover Aelif. Because of this, just to double check, the players, just so you know, have had a long rest, as well as their level up that they had at the end of last session. And in fact, there was one thing that Gavin forgot to mention, which is that actually just before we ended, Durgus made a bit of a discovery and is currently standing with the rather chunky and very young-looking form of a small drake, which has cracked out of the egg that he discovered at sea. But we won't go back into that just now. We will instead settle down to where we were, which is currently standing in the captain's quarters at the front of the ship, looking actually at Durgus, who is currently clutching a hold of this small drake, about the size of a dog, in his arms. Ready to discuss what your next plans are? Ready to discuss what you're going to do next? Ready to figure out what you want to do now?
Yeah, Durgus would be holding this drake out at arm's length, sort of like how someone would hold a baby they weren't a massive fan of. And he sort of appeared between it and the others, and then back again, and then back again. Right, well, I guess we have this now. Where's his bloody wings?
I mean, is it some sort of dog? I don't understand. And then John was going to kind of walk over and prod it, like with a finger.
Don't touch it. You don't know if it's dangerous just yet.
He immediately takes a couple of steps back, kind of like afraid of, I don't know, getting some sort of strange sort of dragon disease, I don't know, something.
Certainly the drake reacts as you kind of approach and go to touch it. There is this reaction of kind of rearing back away from the hand, though as you respond back away from it, it leans forward again and gets closer, as if trying to smell you. Though as you pull away, it clearly sees that it can't, and instead tries to get more and more comfortable in Durgus' arms by stretching out as kind of almost as long as it possibly can in that really awkward way that animals do when they're in your arms.
Yeah, and he sort of tightened his grip a little bit just to make sure it doesn't sort of wiggle anywhere. Obviously not crushing it or anything. And he sort of turns his direction towards I'm still going to get you two confused. Your names both begin with B. Brannan sort of peers him up and down. You're the bloody smart one. I mean, what exactly is it?
Oh, it's a drake. It's like a small dragon. They're normally quite well. Normally they have some kind of color to them. However, this one seems a bit translucent almost. But they're quite all right. He seems friendly enough.
Why, but why is it so bloody fat?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Most definitely. So just briefly, the drake currently spreading itself in Durgis's arms is translucent. It has this faint, almost see-through chitinous appearance to its scales. Though beneath this layer of protection, there is this strange, almost pulsing, colourful energy that dances up and down it, almost like a chromatic rainbow. And most certainly, it looks a little bit chunky. It's definitely a fat boy.
Yeah, maybe it's meant to look a bit like a big, small and chunky.
Right, well, I guess I'll look after it for now. Just, these things don't explode or anything, do they? I mean, can they breathe fire?
I believe, yes. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't met one myself, but as their dragonkin, I imagine so, or something like it. Maybe lightning or acid. It's a few options.
And he sort of peers towards the little drake now, furrowing his big old bushy eyebrows. He goes, "Do you understand us?"
There's certainly no response, not in your head, not verbally, though as you speak, its head does turn, and it pulls itself in a little bit tighter so it's more easy to handle, as if it's paying attention closely to what you have to say.
Do you understand us?
As you get louder, it doesn't respond away from you, its head just kind of turns, as if... Yes?
Right, well, I think this is something for another time. Shall we get back upstairs? I mean, we're sort of drifting right now, are we not?
Yes, we are. Well, currently probably in the direction of Badgerton, although probably should watch it.
Right, well, James, you don't have any rope? I mean, you could do some sort of makeshift leash.
I'll be honest, I'm not. I mean, I do, but I'm not sure how much of a good idea that would be.
I've got some, and Baron would undo some rope off his bag and hand it over to Durgis. Have you got a name for it? It seems you're stuck with it, if anything.
Well, I'm not going to name it just yet. We don't know what it is. It could be, some sort of spy.
It's
mean,
just
it did
hatched.
just get-
The
Sorry,
first thing
go
it
ahead.
sees is you. If anything, you're its mother.
Mother? If anything, I'm its father, first off. And second off, I mean, it came from some... New Dally, he says as he sort of grabs the rope. And sort of bundles it into a bit of a... I don't want to say noose, but a sort of a noose-like knot. Which just sort of like wraps over the head of the thing. For with Baron's permission, sort of gives it a bit of a cut to make a sort of very rudimentary sort of leash and collar.
Certainly you can do that. Baron, I assume you have the 50 feet of rope in your backpack?
Yeah.
Yeah, turn that into, say, 45. Take 5 feet.
Okay.
And you now have a little leash for your pet drake, which doesn't seem to react negatively to having been put on a leash. It seems quite content to sit fairly amicably and wait as you put the leash around it. It takes a brief moment to kind of sniff at under its arm, over its shoulder. It gives a little chew as if getting its scratches and itches across its scales, before parking itself quite happily on the floor nearby and just watching you, Durgis.
Yeah, and he's going to sort of give it a bit of a distrusting glare before peering back towards the others. He goes, "Well then, where are we heading to? Badgerton?"
Yeah, I thought that was the move because old Hetsy's got his family there.
Yes, we're on the way to Ferric, was it? Or Farrick? But Badgerton's on the way, so if you don't mind, we could stop there just for a spell.
Hey, we'll see how your family's doing. What was it, your sister?
Yes, it's my sister. She's from the last letter she sent. Kind of pointed me there, although she was a bit cryptic about it.
I got a request though. When we get to Badgerton, I need to find something. I need there's a special set of tools that I need to finish off my little pet project.
Have you
What
got
sort
one of those as well? One of those, and he points towards the drake.
Geronimo shakes his head.
No, I got something even better than that. Even better.
Hey, you leave him alone. Look at him. I mean, he's young. You can't be comparing him to whatever vile contraptions you're making just yet.
Yeah, but the living, breathing thing, I got something that's even better. It'll do exactly the same thing, but more reliable.
Well, can it breathe?
Yeah.
Can it poo?
No, it doesn't poop. That's why it's
well,
better.
I'm sorry, but it seems you've been outdone by. And he sort of peers towards the little Drake thing, clearly not sure what the hell to do with it. This thing, still, should we head on upstairs? And he sort of begins to make his way out the room now.
Yeah, Geronimo shrugs and walks up after Durgus.
Yeah, leaving behind that fecal competition,
Oh,
you
God.
can return back up to deck where the sun is beginning its rise in the sky. At dawn, it was perhaps an hour ago or so. Yeah, even so, there is plenty of the day left remaining, especially for sailing if you so wish. As you pass through, you find your Aarakocra Swabby working very hard to try and clean bloodstains out of the wood that's around the kind of gate or the bars that lead down into the bilges. Additionally, as you're moving through, Rolt is currently sitting in the crew quarters, helping Raelith sort out putting her things down in kind of setting up a larger hammock for the both of them, though clearly neither of them is really sure how to run the logistics of this. They give you a friendly wave as you pass, clearly pleased to be able to do this journey together. Before you are back up on deck, the sun glittering down from the east behind you, or even ahead of you, sorry, and the shape of Norcliffe, not in the distance behind you, but definitely a little ways away. You've pulled out of docks and you are out onto the open sea, to say the least.
Geronimo's going to look towards Durgus and go,
So, Captain, where we heading? Which direction is Badgerton?
Well, I was just sort of assuming that the wind would take us there. That's how it works in the stories, right?
Yeah, that's how it works. I think. Wait, how do we get here?
I think we'd, well, we knew it's sort of northish, did we not? Where is Badgerton? He sort of peers over towards Brannan, shouting if need be to get his attention.
Brannan will kind of blink and look a little bit shocked that the captain knows so little, but just points directly in front and go, "We just carry on towards the east and then a little south when we land."
Yeah, and he sort of squints. He peers up towards the sky, trying to sort of use the sun as a bit of a compass, as the sort of direction they were heading. Before, trying to roughly make his way east.
Yeah, give me a survival check.
Oh, that's so
It's
close.
fine. It's not the one. It's not the one.
It's a 15. Okay, so with a 15, getting the direction is fairly easy. You are somewhat trained in living out in the wilds and finding your way around, especially without things like a compass and whatnot. So finding the direction of east is particularly easy for you, and given that that was Brannan's whole direction, you can quickly turn the ship to face that way and begin setting sail. Are any of you planning to do anything during the journey over to Badgerton?
I don't think so.
If not, that's absolutely fine. I just want to check if there's any
No.
kind of downtime activities that anyone in particular wanted to partake in.
Think
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
following the conversation Baron had with Brannan in his downtime, he's gonna kind of mess around with that totem they found in the cave by Storia. Just see if there's any different reactions being away from the cave itself, or if there's any at all.
Okay, and are you just doing this like during the day? Are you doing this on your own? Are you?
Probably just be while he's traveling. If there was nothing immediate, he'd probably look for Brannan to get the book as well.
Okay, you've got a couple of days to do this, so I'm just kind of figuring out, are you doing this on your own?
Yeah, he'd probably do it on his own to begin with.
Okay, so we've got Baron, who's going to be checking out the totem. Is anyone else going to be doing anything? Because I'll kind of get everything you're doing and then I'll go through it one by one.
I think Durgus would essentially go through his backpack, seeing what the little thing eats. So like you try it with like a flute or something, then you go for like a water skin, then some rope. Then he'd finally try some rations, just essentially going through and seeing if it ate normal food or just apparently anything you put in front of it.
Okay, so you're playing with your Drake. Anyone else for anything?
Brannan will, for it only take him a little while, but he'll write up another spell scroll for detect magic using that last of the magic ink.
Absolutely perfect. No need to do any stuff for that. Okay. And is that it?
Oh, actually, there is one other thing. He'll be looking around for any bronze on the ship that's kind of not being used.
Bronze. Okay. Perfect. Okay, in which case we'll go through the simplest one first, which is Brannan. Writing up your spell scroll is very, very easy. You can just do that. No need for a roll there. Additionally, for the bronze, could you give me an investigation or a perception check, please?
Yeah. 20.
A 20 is pretty good. So you spend some of these 2 days, or 3, which is how long roughly the journey takes, digging through items and cargo in the hold. The place isn't very well organised, and it doesn't seem to have been put in with any seemingly care as to people who might be looking for things. And so you have to spend a lot of the time actually pulling stuff out, checking what's in there, putting it back, and precariously balancing stuff so as to avoid it toppling the next time the ship hits some kind of bumpy waters. You don't find anything in the way of spare bronze. It seems most of the cargo that's aboard of the ship really was just the supplies to keep a crew alive. Fresh water, rations, spare equipment for repairing sails and rigging and things like that. It doesn't seem to be there were any goods here really that could have been in any value for sale or stuff like that. Really just a ship to carry people, a transport. Next down the list, we shall go to Mr. Durgus. So, Durgus, you pretty quickly on take some time to see what this thing eats, and it doesn't seem to be hungry. Certainly, very early into having it, as you try and feed it, it just ignores food. It doesn't, it's not averted to it. It doesn't try and push it away, but as you offer food and stuff, it just doesn't seem to even pay attention to it. And in fact, after the first 2 hours of it having hatched, you are standing on the top deck by the wheel, just kind of paying attention mostly to the Drake as the ship is in part sailing itself, and the Drake begins to give off these kind of dark wisps of smoke as if its skin is beginning to burn and ash in the sunlight.
Yeah, and sort of seeing, I imagine at first these faint sort of wisps of smoke, which seem to billow up more and more and more. You sort of perk an eyebrow, peering down. Oh yeah, are you alright? He says, sort of leaning in a little bit. Seeing if the thing seems to be any sort of pain, or if it literally just looked like it was hot.
It didn't seem to be any pain, and in fact, as you get closer, it begins to almost scurry around on the floor, doing little circles. And after a few moments, the smoke would suddenly billow up. There'd be a kind of small flash of white that you have to avert your eyes from, and as you look back, the Drake is just gone.
Yeah, and as he sort of peers back, and seeing this sort of, like, I imagine, little charred area where it once sat, he sort of scrambled back up to his feet and sort of fallen over from the blinding light. He sort of peers towards it, and then around quite quickly, seeing if it sort of scuttled off anywhere.
You can give me a perception check, if you'd like. Or an investigation. You could take the time to investigate if you'd prefer to do that.
Let's do perception.
Good roll.
21 is very, very good. You scour the deck of the ship, and you are pretty sure that there is no board left unturned. You even take the time to go below deck, ask other people, and check around to see if perhaps it's gotten into the hold. Like, I don't know, it's performed some kind of trick and then deceived you and run off. Nowhere. Nothing. No one seems to have seen a sight of it after you quickly ask, and certainly across the deck, you check every single place you can spot, and there is absolutely nowhere this thing could be hiding. It seems to have just vanished.
Yeah, and he sort of I don't know where people are gathered, but generally approach the gang or a group of people, sort of quite awkwardly scratching the back of his head as he sort of seems to still be peering around. Right, I think I lost it.
You did what now?
Oh, it just poofed and now it's gone.
You managed to lose the Drake already.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's not like it could really go anywhere. I mean, it's not in the hull. It's look, and he sort of gestures quite frantically for the others to follow him as he sort of leads them over towards the little charred patch on where it once sat. It was there. It started smoking, and then there's a big old blinding light, and it's gone.
As Durgus says this and kind of points down, there is suddenly another flash of blinding light, the smoke billowing out, and the Drake reappears and kind of almost seems to land on the surface of the deck with a bit of a flump, squirreling around on the ground a bit as if trying to reassociate itself with where it is.
Yeah, and he sort of frantically shield his eyes as he peers away. He goes, bloody! It's put it back again.
So it can burst into flames and reappear on your command?
I don't know if it's my command or what, but it's bloody teleporting or something. Look, Brannan, you're the sort of magic type. I mean, what exactly is this?
Brannan, you can give me an Arcana or a Nature check if you so choose.
Yeah, he will. 7.
7? This could be any number of things. Certain dragon-type creatures certainly have the ability to teleport. Others have the capability to go invisible. Some actually don't exist on this plane of existence, and instead they have their homes elsewhere. And the process of them arriving here is almost they're teleporting into our plane, doing whatever for a short while, but then they are forced to return to whichever dimension or plane that they originally come from. It could be any one of these things. You couldn't say for certain based off the fact that it just flashed and vanished and then flashed and reappeared.
Okay. Is it still translucent as well?
It's still definitely shimmering and a little bit translucent. The colour is still not set. It's very much amorphous in that sense.
You'll lean down and just kind of crouch a little closer to it, trying to look it over a bit more thoroughly. And not entirely sure, but it could be teleporting?
Hey, I mean, that's what I said, but where to? I mean, it's just a little baby, it's not. Where the hell can it bloody go?
Well, again, I'm not entirely sure, but it could be that it's got its own home in another dimension, and it pops back here for you.
Yeah, but why would it need to exist in an egg if it's got its own home?
Maybe it didn't choose to exist in the egg. Maybe there was someone forced it in it. I'm hazarding guesses. I'm not sure.
Well, it's bloody strange, whatever it is.
It seems harmless enough, at least. It caused a minor scorch, and when you called for it or seemed upset, it came back.
And he sort of squats down, sort of getting like eye to eye with this little thing, to the point where I imagine he sort of needs to get down onto his chest. He goes, "Where do you bloody go?" He says, sort of squinting his eyes towards the thing.
Geronimo's also going to get down onto his chest, side by side next to Durgus, and peer at it. He's like right there next to his buddy.
The thing kind of gets closer. It takes a few tentative steps towards Durgus as he says this, then pauses as Geronimo also clambers down and gets really, really close to Durgus. It looks Geronimo up and down, sees that Durgus clearly isn't responding negatively, and then approaches Durgus once more as it reaches out a small little paw and places the clawed hand or foot on top of kind of the top of your arm, Durgus, which I assume is out in front of you.
Mm.
As it does so, there is a brief moment in which an image flashes before your eyes. You see this almost glittering astral space in which a mirage of cosmos and colour flashes all around you. It's as if existing in almost an area that you can't quite define, and that there are energies bursting off and just flashing around in a myriad of different ways. And at the center of this space, you see a small, translucent, almost strip of land in which a version of the Drake, seemingly made out of what almost look like stars connected by this astral projections of light, connect up together. And the Drake seems to be jumping around and playing and moving in between these kind of flowing, glittering sprouts of grass and stuff. It seems to be showing you its home. But after that kind of momentary flash of seeing this, you're back to staring this thing in the face as it gets very, very close to you.
See,
Yeah,
I
and
told
he's sort-
you, it's
Sorry.
you're like it's his mother. It's trusting you.
And obviously, seeing this sort of image, his head sort of recoils a bit. He doesn't move like the rest of his body, but he's clearly in a bit of thought. Trust in me. It just look. He sort of clambers back to his knees and then to his feet. It just showed me, I think, where it lived, which is some sort of space rainbow. Is that a thing?
Anyone with proficiency in history, arcana, or religion could make a roll here.
Okay.
There used to be natural lights above the mountains, but I don't think it's similar to what you're talking about.
With an 18, Brannan. The study of the different planes and the different realities was something you touched upon during your time training as a wizard. It wasn't particularly your field of expertise, and certainly it's an area where there is a great deal to learn, because for as much as people seem to find out about it, they learn just as much that seems to break all of the rules that they've learned. The one that Durgus is describing is actually something that you recall from some of the more basic lessons on this theory, and it appears to suggest something of the astral plane, a level of existence, a realm that exists well above the material where you are, in which cosmic and indefined energies kind of swirl and exist. It's not really the home of any powerful deities, it's where more ill-defined creatures existentially normally make their habitat, because it's just a kind of place of raw energy and power.
He'll lean closer and go, I think the astral plane is probably the best look. Primordial energies and powerful creatures. It seems like this thing would call that home.
All right, well, at least he's not going off and telling others about what we're doing. It's the last thing we need right now.
I imagine it's only really here, kind of waving his hand around, when you want it to be, by the likes of it.
Well, I don't really know why. I mean, clearly my granddad did something for that bloody egg, but I'm sure he'll tell me some more stuff in the future. Ain't that right, boy? He sort of peers back down towards the thing, peering it over to see if there's any sort of acknowledgement.
It looks at you as if it's acknowledged the fact that you've spoken, but there's no real sign that it has any comprehension of what you're talking about.
Geronimo's also going to lean across and try and pat the Drake from his crouched level.
The Drake seems to accept the patting, though in the same way a dog or a cat might when you try and pet it too hard, the head kind of lowers down to almost as if lessen your impact or lessen your touch slightly, but it doesn't respond violently in any way.
The gnome's then going to sort of push himself and go, it seems pretty good to have a new little pet that we got here. Bigsy, I'm pretty on board with this. You should keep him around.
Well, it's all I'm going to throw him overboard, but still, I don't really like things I don't understand. Especially when they're strange and lizardy. No offense. He sort of opens a paw and I'm sorry to the thing, before realizing it probably has no really clue what he's on about.
Oh yeah, certainly there's no response to you saying that it's strange and lizardy, and as you apologise to it, it looks up at you, realises that it doesn't really need to do anything, and then scampers off seemingly towards where a seagull had perched itself on one side on one of the wooden banisters that runs around the edge of the ship. As it gets closer, it gives this kind of low, throaty growl, and then as it does so, it gives this almost kind of burp belch, and from its mouth, this strange cloud of multicoloured energy billows out over the seagull, and the seagull just squawks in pain and then falls over the side and splashes into the water.
Right.
It just killed something.
Well, I guess it's technically pest control. I mean, if it does any of that to you lot, just say, but I guess it's potentially dangerous.
Well, I mean, some ships have cats. We have a drake, I suppose.
Small one at that. I mean, just how big can these things get?
Brannan shrugs. I mean, it varies. That might be its full size, or it might get maybe as big as a dog. They don't get massive.
Oh, so not like the ship size at all. That's
Oh,
reassuring.
no, they're a drake, not a dragon. They won't be that big.
Aye, well. I guess we just keep it around, and I guess if it sets anything on fire, just, say. In the meanwhile, let's focus on getting to Badgerton, shall we?
Yeah, for sure. And Geronimo is going to kind of like side-eye the Drake a little bit, sort of kind of in his mind, sort of suddenly flashing to images of him riding this large, sort of majestic Drake dragon into battle with the gun, and then just wanders off.
Yeah, and certainly the journey is almost entirely without incident. However, there is one very strange happening during the second night of travel. Now, I assume at night you wish for the ship to continue going, because otherwise your pace is going to be immensely slowed.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I also assume that you kind of take turns or shifts on top deck, just kind of making sure the ship doesn't run aground, there isn't any incidents of things attacking you in the night. Essentially, there's a guard duty, but also just make sure the ship doesn't founder.
Yeah.
Okay. On the second night of travel, Baron, as you are kind of sitting up during the wee hours of the morning, checking up on this totem, the air around you begins to grow thick with fog. Now, this isn't unheard of. The speed in which it arrives is certainly a little bit creepy, but with little to no experience of the sea, and with the fact that you have seen kind of fog and mist descend like this so quickly in the mountains, it's nothing to be concerned about, and you can turn your attentions back to the totem. The thing itself seems rather inert as you pick it up and manipulate it around in your hands, as if it's whatever possessed it before is no longer doing so. Then, after a few moments of testing it, you catch a glimmer from the corner of your eye, and you look up to see that somewhere off out to sea, though from a source you can't quite identify, there is this circling green light, like that you might find on a lighthouse. It seems to pivot very, very slowly, sweeping across the deck and illuminating everything in this kind of creepy, long green shadows, before spinning off to check out around the rest of the ocean.
Okay. And you said it kind of glazed over the ship, right?
Yeah, the light kind of travels across the ship with each rotation, casting those long shadows and bathing you in that light. Certainly, you don't feel any different. It's just a very odd thing to happen. There's certainly no land over there to suggest, at least as far as you can see, there's no land to suggest there should be somewhere where this light could be coming from.
Okay. Well, with little to no knowledge of what's in the sea, he's immediately concerned of some giant sea monster that's going to eat the ship in one. So he's going to kind of likely walk out onto the main deck and look over the side, see if there's anything weird going on below them.
Sure, give me a perception check. At disadvantage, because technically the sea in the night means low light.
Pretty hard to see, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a 5.
A 5, very impressive. You peer over the side of the ship into the gloomy water below, and really it's just very, very dark. There's that kind of swirling surface, and you can pierce nothing beneath the depths. I mean, the only positive, I guess you could say, out of that is that, there's nothing that's got close enough to attack you.
Yeah, and with his worries at ease to an extent, he's probably just going to sit up on one of the higher parts of the ship, giving a quick glance out to see if there was any other sources of light nearby, or perhaps different colors.
Interesting. You peer out, and the green kind of almost lighthouse light continues to spin at its slow, lazy pace. Checking out around it, at first you can see no other sources of light. However, since you are specifically looking for them, you do begin to pick out these pinpricks of white, almost orbs of glowing white light, as if in the mist and the gloom itself there are almost like fireflies or something, those kind of small pinpricks of glowing. Those begin to sit just on the edge of where roughly you can see.
Yeah, and with that, I think he'd probably try and find maybe a piece of, say, broken box or just something that he can toss into the water towards those lights, see if there's any reaction.
There is plenty of detritus and things we shall assume on the ship for you to do something like that, and picking up just the nearest piece of throwaway to hand, you toss it over the side, it hits the water with a splash, and doesn't seem to have any effect, though after a few moments you begin to notice that the lights are growing in size and additionally in intensity, suggesting they're coming closer and closer. In only a few seconds, they appear to be almost the size of people, as this light, still impossible to put kind of a likeness to it. It still seems to just be this kind of glowing aura of light coming through the fog. It's still not possible to perceive it.
Would you say that they're kind of making the shape of a person, or is it?
Definitely humanoid. You kind of got that, single head, seems to be a kind of larger midriff, and then going down to skinnier at the bottom. There's that kind of suggestion of the shape of a human, the same way you might see a humanoid in the night as a kind of silhouette. But other than that, it's really impossible to define what exactly they are.
Okay. Looking towards these lights, he'll just kind of wave his hand in the air a bit. Hello? Is anyone there?
As you call out, the lights stop approaching, and there is a brief pause and silence before all of a sudden, as if emerging from behind a curtain, the lights come close enough and break through that kind of thick fog into your periphery proper. And you can see these strange, ethereal, ghostly forms of humanoids dressed in the garb you would have expected and have seen in some of the jetties and wharfs you've been around now, of sailors. Most are wearing kind of tight breeches that wouldn't get caught in the rigging and stuff like that. They're mostly barefoot, with very small tops. Their arms, even in the pale light of being ghosts, you can see seem to shimmer just a little bit darker than the rest of them. It's an assortment of different peoples. You have some humans there, you can pick out some goblins, you notice some orcs and things like that. Really no one specific race to this crew, but they all seem to be floating across over to you like ghosts in the night.
Yeah, seeing this... Oh. Very loud car.
Yeah.
Along the sea, zooming across.
A ghostly Formula One car drives past.
They deploy the speedboat.
It's coming back. It's coming back as well. It's circling.
Yeah, he'll likely... Would there be like a bell or something on the ship to like wake everyone up, or?
There's a bell. It kind of rings very, very gently and dully, as it sways in the water as you continue to sail on. But you could definitely ring that bad boy much harder.
Yeah, I think he'll probably go and stand by it just to see whether they approach any closer, or if it's just maybe being a little tired. His head's just messing with him.
They certainly get closer. In fact, they get so close that they actually begin to clamber over the side of the ship. Though, as their hands touch the deck, or as they touch the ship, they immediately turn away from you. And there's about 15 or so of them, but they begin to disperse themselves across the top of the ship, finding different roles and beginning to play out this almost ghostly charade of working the ship. They appear to be climbing up the rigging, pulling the sail up. They seem to be working at the anchor. One of them goes and stands behind the wheel and kind of languishes there as he seems to just be lazily turning the ship from left to right, though they don't seem to affect the ship in any way. The ship doesn't move or anything like that, but this ghostly crew seems to just kind of step aboard and then begin to sail the ship. Actually, as they do that, give me a perception check.
Okay. 7.
Peering out back across the ship and out to sea to see if there's any more of them. That doesn't seem to be the approach of any more lights. It just seems to be these 15 or so. And as I said, they don't appear to be posing any particular danger to you. In fact, now that they're at work, they don't even seem to be looking at you. It's as if you are inconsequential to what they are doing.
Yeah, and I think you'd step away from the bell, likely walking up to the ship's wheel. Seeing Durgus up there most of the time, whether he's actually doing anything or not, you'd assume that that'd be the captain directing the rest of the crew from that position. So we'd go up there and first of all see if there's any reaction to him approaching, and if not, just straight up try and kind of put his hand through this ghostly figure.
There's certainly no response to your approach. The crewman continues to just look out kind of vaguely forwards, as if just trying to avoid some large obstacle that might be waiting there. And as you reach through it, there is this strange, icy, cold feeling, that sense of having walked over your own grave, as you push through this incorporeal body and grab a hold of the wheel, though the ghost still doesn't seem to react, and in fact the wheel can move quite freely under your hands. It just passes through the ghost, whose hands remain in a stationary position.
Okay. With that, he'd try and maybe wave his hand in front of the thing's face. Can you see me, or is anyone there?
The word "there" is garbled, as all of a sudden you feel yourself tipped forwards, as if the ship has just hit something and almost cartoonishly risen upwards from the back. It throws you forwards into the deck. You begin to roll down it, managing to catch yourself fairly quickly, as the ship begins to nosedive down into the water. Like, just throwing your head up, you can immediately see the water lapping up across the deck as you just seem to dive down and down and down, straight diagonally under the depths.
Yeah, and throwing himself almost immediately into a state of panic, not really knowing what to do in the water, let alone likely not being that strong a swimmer. He'll probably just try and struggle around, maybe grab a hold of something, so he's not kind of drifted away from the ship. That just
Certainly grabbing a hold of something seems the sensible option, and in fact, as the water continues to rise and the ship makes its final descent down under the waves, there is this immediate impact of the water crashing into you and trying to rip you off of the deck of the ship. Holding on saves you fairly well, and you're able to hold on even though your feet come up off the wood momentarily, as the ship makes its final descent and eventually sinks totally under the water. As it does so, your eyes sting with the salt for a moment. You have to clamp them shut, but after a few moments that stinging subsides, and you're able to open them again to see what's going on. And there's this strange clarity to the water. You've been around the sea enough to know that it's fairly brackish, at least in this area, and quite dark with silt and mud and things like that. These aren't the clear waters of a summer holiday. But despite that, you can see fairly clearly in all directions around you into this just great open expanse that is almost sparkling in the way it refracts the light from the moon above, which now seems to be able to pierce through a fog that you assume is still there. More concerning than that, however, is the fact that the form of these crewmen has now changed. In descending beneath the water, their figures are now distorted and altered and warped by almost the breakdown and replacement of their physical form, instead by aspects of the ocean. Arms have been replaced by long, almost octopus-like tentacles. Their faces are adorned with barnacles and things like that clutch on and spread out across the skin, almost like a rash or a disease. Their faces have large sections of coral and shells that sit on them like hats. All in all, just ghosts that seem to almost have decayed and died within the very ocean itself. Still, though, going about the work of sailing the ship.
Yeah, and seeing their form begin to change, probably kind of back up a bit, assuming that something else is coming. But realizing they're kind of just carrying on with their work, he'll actually try and make his way into the captain's quarters where Geronimo, Durgus, and likely the Drake would be resting.
So making your way towards the back of the ship and beginning to clamber down into the crew quarters. As you get to the top of the ladder, immediately pushing up out of it, more of these ghosts appear. 10 or so of them clamber up one after another, another kind of assortment of different creatures and humanoids, all still in this distorted myriad of sea life that clings to their body, all of them making their way over as if to take a position on the ship. Eventually, as they pass through you, each one providing this almost kinetic force that drives you back away from the opening, you reach down to try and take a hold of the ladder that would let you below deck, and the ladder then is gone, and so is the hole that would let you go below deck. The deck is now just sealed, as if this thing had never been here.
Okay. That happening before him, he would rush back out to where he was, trying to find any other source of, I suppose you could say, sentient life. Someone that, whether it be a crewmate on the ship or even one of the weird, like, seawater boys, to try and get a bit more clarity of what's going on.
Certainly, but returning seems to just suggest that the crew is now entirely manned by the sailors of the deep. And moving around, you can find nothing to suggest that any kind of sentient or living being remains here aboard the ship with you. Where your friends could be, you don't know, sealed below deck maybe. How this has happened, could this be to do with the totem? There's no real way of knowing. As you remain atop the deck, though, must be a realization that you haven't needed air. Like, whether you breathed or not, fearing drowning is entirely up to you. But there hasn't even been, if you haven't, there isn't even the sense that you've required air. You are just existing here, fully capable. There's no need, there's no burning sensation in your lungs.
Yeah, and with that realization, he'll probably try his luck again, maybe trying to approach one of the crewmates, perhaps trying to rest a hand on one of them, as he did beforehand.
As you do so, you approach one of the nearby crewmates. It appears to be a half-elf, from what you can tell by the shape of the ear, who is rapidly pulling away at the wheel that operates the anchor, as if trying to raise it. When you get closer and place your hand down on their shoulder, this time you feel the kind of soft resistance that would suggest flesh. You feel as if you're touching an actual person, and the ghostly figure stops and looks over its shoulder almost accusingly at you, as if you've just done some great harm. Though when it notices you and takes a kind of moment to process who you are, the face relaxes, there's a shake of the head, and it looks ready to get pushing again. Aye, Captain, I'm on my way.
Yeah, seeing the reaction, he would pull his hand away pretty quickly. And then drop into almost a state of confusion. Captain, what do you mean?
I'm doing as you said, Captain. Doing as you said, Captain. Doing as you said. Working the anchor.
I don't know who you are.
No, I'm just the anchor man, sir. I'm just the anchor man. Working the anchor like you said. Please, don't take out the whip.
No, I'm not going to hurt you. I don't know where I am. What ship is this?
You ask your questions, and there's a confused, puzzled look over the features of the half-elf that you can pick out. But before it has a chance to respond, you hear a call from above, quite clearly. Raznoko! And as that call goes out, all of the sailors stop, as if commanded by a single, almost puppet master. They turn on the spot like soldiers and peer straight ahead of the ship, which is still making this diagonal downwards descent. Following their gaze, you can easily pick out these tall, dark, almost onyx and obsidian pillars that stand quite proudly and alone in the vast emptiness of the sea. and everyone seems to be focused directly on it.
Yeah, and would the pillars kind of have any other like characteristic to them? Would there be any corresponding sigils, say, from what might have been seen on the totem or the book they found?
From where you are, you can see none, though as the ship grows ever closer and the true scale of these blocks comes into view, you realize these things are as tall as mountains. Now, obviously, you are fully aware of how big those things get, but like looking just downwards, you can see that this just goes down and down and down to the point where you can't see. These are some of the largest stone pillars you've ever seen. And when it becomes more clear, well, what is on their surface, you can pick out these strange, not sigils, but instead kind of alcoves and gaps and markings that seem to suggest that rather than just being solid lumps of rock, these are in fact incredibly complex, winding myriads of corridors and buildings and pillars and things like that that all come together to form this single great structure. It's as if an entire city of stone has been stacked on top of itself, just higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, seeing this, he'd turn to one of the crew members again. What is this? Where are we going?
As you say this, you can see that all of the crew, their eyes are somewhat almost hazed, as if they are in a trance like a moth heading towards light. They pause for a moment, and as you say your question, there is a vague response as if, "Oh, I need to answer my captain," from one of the crew members who is near you. They peer their head towards you, that their eyes never leave the great structure that is ahead, and with this almost soft intonation, as if like a chant, "What is dead may never die." And as he says this once, there's a pause, and then all of the crew members repeat it together. And you see faintly across their face this dull green light begin to glow and shadow their features as the stones begin to give off this strange, ethereal, ghostly green illumination.
Is any of that coming off Baron himself, or is he still relatively normal, I suppose?
As you look down at yourself, you still seem relatively, though you find that in certain places, for example, just behind your elbow, or at the top of one of your biceps, that small creatures like barnacles and things like that have begun to cling on, almost as if they have caught onto you as you pass through them. They are ghostly. As you kind of wipe a hand over them, your hand passes straight through, but they seem to be attaching to you very, very slowly.
Okay. That would kind of immediately make him think of the cultists. He would. Do he still have the totem on him?
Yes, you are still. The totem is still clutched somewhere in your hand, I assume. You haven't thrown it away, and you certainly didn't drop it.
Yeah. Is that kind of doing anything else? Or
checking the totem, you find that actually now the thing itself isn't glowing, though it has this icy coldness in your hand, even colder than the water around you. And in fact, you find that as you look at it, you can see the small kind of tentacle appendages that are attached to it in the water writhe, move down towards your hand, and almost drag themselves up along your hand as if trying to grip onto you, but too weak to remain latched.
yeah, and seeing the different tentacles try and kind of wrap themselves around his hand, he would immediately just try and throw the totem to the ground.
Throwing it down has perhaps less of an impact as you would have liked, the water slowing your ability to do so. But it eventually bumps into the ground and begins to drift and travel and softly clatter along the surface of the ship. As, with a thump, all of the crew members around you drop to their knees and throw themselves down prostrate. Turning to look back at the stone pillars, you can see now in those alcoves, in those gaps, in those archaic almost porticos that make up this strange vast building complex, more faces, ghostly and pale like the ones around you, peering down. And then with almost a shunting or a shimmering, you notice something even more horrible as a figure far vaster and gargantuan than you have ever seen before moves behind the pillars. At first you thought the pillars were just standing there in the abyss that is the ocean, and it is only as this thing shifts that you realise truly the scale of it. It was so vast it was providing a static backdrop to the entire ocean in front of you. It shifts just to the side, and as it does so, it seems to almost unhinge these long splayed sections of its body from the side behind the pillars, slowly lean forward as if wrapping arms around the pillars to hug them. From those appendages, even more split off, peeling away like the almost fingers of a hand, wrapping around the pillars and writhing in between them with these dark tentacle-like appendages. From between the pillars, there is a almost lustrous purple glow as a single eye blinks open. There is a pause, and then everyone around you shrieks as you yourself are also filled with this agonizing pain directly into your mind, as if someone is jamming a knife into your brain over and over and over and over again. It's there for what seems like almost an eternity, and then suddenly it's gone. And as you look upon this creature, you hear within your mind, "The champion has returned."
Did Alex just cut out for anyone else?
Yeah, just a little bit. He said the champion has returned.
That's
Okay.
it. Yeah, that's it.
What do you mean, the champion?
Touch the other side, did you? Returned now you have.
Who are you? Who am I? Where am I?
As you say, "Where am I?" all of the crew around you say in unison, "Raznok!"
I've never heard of this place. Are we on a different? He kind of pauses for a moment, clearly trying to formulate the words in his head. A different plane? What is this?
Raznok is this. You hear the voice almost stuttering in your mind. Home of what was, what is, what will never be. You slumber now with us. We slumber, dead and not dead.
Am I dead? Did the ship crash?
Ship still sails. Are you dead? Maybe. Or maybe not. It's impossible to tell from here.
With that, Baron's going to reach for one of these smaller hand axes he has, presumably on, say, his belt.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling that forward, he's kind of going to not jam it into his hand, but try and kind of maybe just pick away at it, see if he feels anything.
Certainly that feels really, really bad. As you kind of like just dig a little bit into your hand, you can feel as the axe goes in, and it's very painful, and you begin to bleed, and you watch as it almost wisps up in that way that an injury does underwater, the blood immediately dispersing. There's a soft chuckling in your mind. Impossible to tell, you are so long ago, so far forwards.
I don't know what you mean. Have I been here before?
Never before will do so again. We have foreseen it.
What is it you want with me?
It is not what I want with you. I want for nothing. Want is not us. It is what you seek, what you want. You have touched the side again.
The site. You're speaking in riddles. I don't understand.
You are so small and insignificant. Understandable that you do not comprehend. Do not fear, little champion. We will help you. And with those words, there is a pulse of that green light that crashes across the whole ship. It throws you back against the deck, and as you hit the back, everything goes black as your head hits the ground. That blackness exists around you for what feels to you like only a few moments. You think it's a few seconds, your eyes are closed. And as you slowly peel your eyes back open, you find yourself once again lying on top of the ship, as you were pretty much when your shift started, staring up at the night sky which glitters and sparkles with starlight. The fog is gone, there is no green light, and there is no crew around you. Though, as you lay there, you feel this very, very heavy weight left hand.
Yeah, and he'd look towards his hand. Presumably that being like the one he cut, see if there was still any kind of marking there.
Yeah, certainly there is a marking there. Your hand still bleeding quite freely, but bleeding quite freely down over the anchor that you now hold. The anchor is fairly small compared to the one attached to the ship that you currently have, but heavy and large enough for it to be quite a burden in your hand. It sits there and rests comfortably as if it was always meant to be there, covered in the slimy lichens and mosses that attach themselves to things that live in the sea, having that feel of rough, dark iron that tends to avoid rust after exposure from salt water for a long time. Around the top of the anchor, there is a thick length of rope that is tied to it very tightly, and that rope runs up to your arm, wraps around your arm, and then sinks visibly into the flesh just below the inside of your elbow.
Yeah, and kind of probably being quite taken back by this. Almost in a state of shock, he just quickly dropped the anchor, kind of taking a look around the ship, maybe patting his hand on some of the wood that would be surrounding him, but making sure that he's actually back where he was and it's not just, say, another dream.
Certainly everything has the feel of being as you remember it. Everything looks like it does. You pat yourself, everything seems real. There's the loud, reassuring thud of the anchor hitting the top of the deck, but that thing certainly wasn't there to begin with, and it is definitely most seriously submerged into your flesh where the rope connects to you.
He's going to reach up towards where it seems to just kind of be a part of him and try and rip the anchor free.
You try to do so, and immediately there is this agonizing pain, as if you're almost ripping off your very arm. The thing does not come apart, and it almost seems to flex and stretch in that way that flesh does. But before you have any real chance to kind of put some real torsion or tension on it, it is just too painful and forced to stop.
He's going to inspect the anchor closer. Is there anything else on it, or is it just kind of covered in gross, gooey sea stuff?
It's covered in all that stuff. Additionally, as you inspect it far more closely, you can see around the top of the anchor, where the kind of ring is for the rope to go through and tie up to it, there are the small splayed tendrils, that same one-eyed monster motif the totem had, a creature that you had seen before.
Does he still have the totem, or is that missing now?
The totem seems to have gone.
Ooh. In that case, he's probably going to get back up, anchor in hand, and try and not necessarily charge his way through the ship, but clearly not trying to be quiet. I think he's in a bit of a rush, trying to find Brannan.
Okay.
Brannan will probably be downstairs sleeping.
In the crew quarters, yeah. So before we jump to that, I think we can take our first break here. So we've been running for just over an hour now. So we are going to go grab some drinks, we're going to grab some food, we are going to take a quick break, and we shall be back in about 10 minutes or so. Okay? Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Sounds good. And we are back for part 2 of Pact to the GM, picking off right where we left off, with Baron rushing below deck, strange anchor appendage in hand, seeking out the wizard Brannan to find out what the hell is happening to him. Baron, as you make for the kind of porthole that's at the back of the ship, climbing down as quickly as you can. Brannan is very easy to find, being in one of the hammocks in the crew quarters. And in your kind of rush and your shock, a few people, including Rolton Raylith, look up in this kind of dreary slumber, confused as to what has you so agitated.
Yeah, and Baron will quickly rush over to Brannan, giving him a less than polite nudge while he's still asleep, trying to wake him up.
Brannan will shift slowly and then splutter a bit. And go, oh, hello. Is it my shift already?
Not exactly. Do you still have that book we found in the cave?
Yes, it's just in my bag. And he points to the rucksack by his feet.
Okay, and he rush over, probably just pulling things out until finding the book.
Brannan looks a little bit like flabbergasted and jumps down off the bed and goes, wait, just let me sort. Oh dear, that's going to take some replacing.
I need to find. Do you see this as well? And he holds out the weird anchor thing attached to him.
I'm assuming I do.
Oh yeah, most certainly. In one arm, Baron clutches at this dark metal anchor in one hand, the rope wrapped around his forearm all the way up to the elbow, where you can see it fuse and sink into the flesh.
Oh, so you can clearly see it's fused with him.
Yeah.
At first he looks at the anchor and seems a little thrown off and goes, why did you pull... Wait. Oh God, what happened, man? How did you manage to... Is that attached to you?
He would go to kind of like pull up the rope thing again, just to show that it is kind of fused into him. I don't know what happened. Have you seen any strange ghost pirate men?
I've been asleep. I hadn't seen anything. Did you see strange ghost pirate men?
Baron would look towards Brannan with full sincerity, seeming like he is just letting the ramblings of a madman spurt out of him. Yes, I was on my watch, and these strange lights, they came up to the ship, and I sunk into the sea, and... where's that book? Has it been doing anything strange?
Brannan will finally find the book and pull it out and just have a quick look at it. Does it seem any different?
The Maelstrom looks like it has changed not at all. It's still exactly where you left it. The cover's still that dark, worn leather. No change whatsoever.
Looking over the book, seeing it's the same, he'll hand it over to Baron and go, just make sure you don't have the totem as well. Do you need any help? Well, I mean, it seems like you do, he says, pointing at the rope.
That's the thing, Brannan. The totem's gone. It's... I don't know where, but I'm assuming it's now this. There needs to be some answers. I know we approach you because you're the fancy, smart one, but I don't understand what's happening to me.
Brannan will, after handing the book over, he'll go up to the rope and try and look at where it attaches to his arm, and just kind of looks at the join, I suppose. Does it look like it's just becomes part of him, or does it look like it's been attached violently? Like, what am I looking at?
It looks like it's his flesh that seems to lift up, almost as if it was just regularly part of his arm, and the skin and flesh just changes and distorts and becomes this rope. There is no sense that it's been attached surgically. There's no signs that it has been attached violently, as you said. Nothing like that. It just looks like naturally part of his arm has now formed into this offshoot, if you will, of rope.
He gives it a little tug about where it joins the arm. Does that hurt?
doesn't feel great, if I'm honest.
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand. Honestly, I've never seen anything like this. What happened? You said ghosts? Maybe we should wake the others.
I don't know. I don't want to scare anyone.
As Baron kind of gives this resigned sigh, his emotions begin to almost collapse inwardly. The rush of energy failing. You begin to notice as the rope tightens and constricts around your arm, and then watch both of you as it begins to sink deeper and deeper into the flesh, retracting and pulling in, almost like a snake pulling back into a cave nest, as the anchor is slowly yanked up and up as being drawn in, eventually rising up across the arm until it reaches the point where where it connects to the flesh, and at which point it then wraps around the arm, bending almost inwards and outwardly to flex around your arm, and then just sinks entirely back into your arm and is gone.
Yeah, and Baron would kind of watch it retract into him, I suppose, before looking up to Brannan, looking absolutely confused. I don't want the others to know for now.
Very well. That's not. I don't know. I have no idea what could cause that. He just looks a bit dumbstruck.
I'll explain them in the morning. I'll come and let you know when it's your watch. And you kind of just slowly get up.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
And as night passes on, certainly Baron, there is no other repeat of the incident. The following days pass peaceably and with fair weather, seemingly with no mention of the incident that occurred during. After those days of sailing, which, as I said, just a reminder, you can all have that long rest, make sure your stats are up. You eventually pull up to the island that Badgerton sits upon, south side. Running along the shore to help guide you, you eventually approach the village in the distance that can be none other than your destination. Proudly sitting in a kind of small, unassuming southerly bay, Badgerton is to survive on fishing and subsistence farming, as you can tell from myriad and small plethora of fishing vessels that bob rather gently in the water, doing their best to row away from you as you sail up towards the bay. A multitude of small bluffs of rock stick up from the village itself, as if it has been built on a number of different very small, almost like rises, to create this strange up-down visage to the village, which is made up mostly of tough-looking houses made of wood and adorned with this quite regular black and yellow checked heraldry. Almost every single building has either a flag or a very large banner with this coloration on it. And in the center of that heraldry, there is this image of a badger kind of rearing backwards. Pulling up to the dock, there is a couple of curious glances and a few gangs of people come wandering down to see who you might be, though there doesn't seem to be anyone who's actually working the docks to help you more, and so there is the rather embarrassingly long period of time spent docking yourself up safely, as none of you are really trained in mooring a ship. Eventually, though, with some help from Rolt and perhaps a lot of swearing, you finally manage to hook the ship up to one of the mooring posts so that it won't float away, and run a gangplank down to the wooden decking below, which you can safely step off onto the jetty that is the dock of Badgerton.
Geronimo's going to take the first step forward off the ship. As per usual, he seems like a gnome with a real mission inside. He kind of like storms down the gangplank and onto the dock and kind of peers around, looking for the nearest person he can find.
There's a number of people watching you very closely. None of them appear to work on the docks. It mostly seems to be people actually on the shore, standing with their friends, just kicking their feet around as they just watch you curiously to see what you might do.
Geronimo's going to look at the first kind of group of them and go, "Hey, you guys, do you know if there's any woodworkers in and about this area in Badgerton?"
With this incredibly charismatic introduction, there is a few kind of stifled guffaws and chuckles at your attempt to hail the group. Eventually, a human is kind of shoved out as if he was selected or drew the short straw, and he steps towards you, this rather round, kind of sunburned, pink individual who gives you a look up and down as he slouches and presses his hands into his tunic. "Oh, woodworkers' tools? Woodworkers? There's a few around. What exactly are you after?" He starts to scratch at a boil on his nose.
You don't need to be so embarrassed. You're all red in the face, my friend. But I just want to get some tools from them. You know, the kind of the chipping tools.
The face that you just commented on scrunches up as if not really comprehending what the hell you're talking about, before he shrugs his head over his shoulder. Yeah, I suppose you could go looking for. Might have them at the shops, maybe. Take a look. If not, the lock might have some. We keep a lot of stuff up there. Otherwise, try and barter some of some.
Okay, thank you so much for being so helpful. You can get back to your and John kind of like stumbles trying to think of words. Frolicking. He kind of shoos him away a little.
The word frolicking seems to mean absolutely nothing to this individual, and he just smiles and wanders back over kind of the din of people badgering the guy who spoke to you. You mutter, yeah, just some strange little gnome asking about woodcutting. Yeah, and they just get into this kind of break into this natural jabs at each other, and probably at your expense too.
Jerome's going to head back to the others and kind of patiently wait for them to come across the gangplank. And whoever does, he kind of goes, so I need to buy something before we go looking for old Hatsy's Patsy friend person.
You mean a sister?
Yeah, that's it. That's the word. I need to go get something. It's really important.
I doubt it is, but how long will it take? And I mean, can you bloody afford it?
I think I could. I could definitely barter.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go with you first, and try and find whatever you're after, and then he sort of turns back. I assume Brannan not being sort of far behind.
Yeah, Brannan will be following down.
What exactly does your sister look like?
Not too dissimilar to me. There is a bit of relation, but she's a bit taller. Her hair is more red, and obviously doesn't have one of these as he kind of brushes his moustache.
Hey, well, keep an eye out for her. Did she say where she'll be?
No, as I said, the letter was a little cryptic, but I imagine, knowing her, probably if they have a library there, and if not, then the nearest tavern.
Okay. And also hearing this, Dirks would sort of just march past Geronimo and probably look towards the same group, which he didn't realize Geronimo had sort of pestered before. And he sort of waves a friendly hand and goes, "Oi, where's your nearest library or tavern?"
There's a pause before the same pudgy individual is out towards you. "Library? No library here. Tavern? Got one of those, though. Half the time." Points up, kind of off to their right, towards one of the bluffs of rock that rises up in the village. You should be able to see up there. Get yourself a drink. Again, a few chuckles at the whatever joke they think they're making.
Hi, thank you. He sort of calls out back over it, sort of throwing a brow, noticing the chuckling, but obviously doesn't do anything just yet. As he peers back towards the others and goes, "Well, it's a place to start. Did you ask if they have any sort of shops or anything?" He says towards Geronimo.
Geronimo kind of like nods and kind of gives him a big old thumbs up. Yeah, they said that there was something called the Lock and maybe some other places, but he wasn't so specific. It's kind of hard to figure out stuff when they're not so specific. I think they might be lost. You know where they got the crazy thing in their mind? They got those little worms that kind of eat in there and they make them all like super dumb.
Oh, I just think you didn't ask for directions, you idiot. He says he goes to sort of joyfully sort of bat him over the back of the head, like not too hard. Look, I'm sure we'll find it. Let's head that direction and hope, the shop's not too far away.
Geronimo initiates Ultra Instinct Geronimo and dodges. No, I'm kidding. They'd follow Durgus.
Okay, so you guys are making your way up to where you were pointed to?
Yep. And obviously he keeps his eyes peeled for the lock.
Absolutely. So, making your way up the route that you were gestured, it's a fairly short trek uphill as you clamber up onto the rocky outcropping that the kind of two-story building you were pointed to sits upon. It's kind of an L-shaped building with a large section jutting out towards you from the front, with the kind of bottom of the L as the back of the building. In the gap that would make this into a full rectangle, you can see that a number of tables and chairs and booths have been set up outside, and people are sitting quite amicably and drinking away their, well, at this point, this would be the morning. They're drinking away their morning as they chatter quite rowdily with one another, though seemingly in good spirits. As you approach as a group, there is this kind of odd hush and quiet as you get closer, clearly recognized as being outsiders. From one of the tables, sitting actually on top of the table with a very large tankard of ale between his legs, a goblin gives you this kind of odd look over with these bleary, clearly already drunk eyes, before yelling, "Oi! Oi!"
Seeing the goblin, Durgis's eyes immediately squint. He sort of seems to adopt a pose like danger detected as he peers towards it and peers towards the others, and then sort of frantically looks around to see if there's any other goblins.
There's another one sitting with the goblin that's yelling at you, and no one seems to be paying those goblins much attention. But other than that, you can't see any other.
Yeah, and he's kind of sort of tilts his head up, showing some sort of not pride, but sort of giving off the idea of he's not sort of be messed with, puffing out his chest a little bit as he replies in Goblin, saying, "What do you want?"
The goblin looks remarkably confused as you speak Goblin, and it just frowns as if not sure what you're saying.
"What do you want?" he says in non-Goblin this time.
Clearly now understanding what you're saying, it gives a kind of wary nod and goes, "You one of those hounds, or you a badger?"
"You bloody what?"
"You an
"I'm a
hound?"
dwarf." "No, I'm a dwarf."
The eyes narrow. Again, it's trying to spy you out. "You ever been with the hounds?"
"Pet a dog once. What are you on about? This is some sort of faction thing."
There is a hand that reaches up and slaps the goblin around the back of the head. "No, they're probably not from the hounds, because they don't know what you're talking about." The goblin gives a kind of grumble, nods their head as if they accept this point, and then goes back to their drink. And everyone relaxes slightly at the suggestion that you are not a hound. With that, you are free to enter the tavern.
I think Durgus would walk up towards the goblin still. Obviously curious now about what exactly they're talking about. He goes, "What do you bloody mean with this badger or hound business?"
"Where do you think you are?"
"Well, I'm in Badgerton, but that explains the badgers, and what about the dog stuff?"
"Hounds. On the north side of the island, you got Houndford. The badgers and the hounds."
Also, some sort of town dispute thing. Yeah, I think you both will get along.
"They're scum. Bloody hounds. Stealing
take
our
your drop.
flocks, stealing our crops. He seems to have no kind of awareness of what you're saying. Getting into all kinds of trouble and stealing from our travelling folk.
Hey, so they're stealing your things.
Oh, they're worse than that. Goes back centuries.
Right. Well, I'll leave you to it. Just, yeah, I said, spread the message. We have no hound folk. Don't want to be attacked by you.
Ain't no hounds, all right.
Yeah, and he sort of dips his head at that before peering back towards the others, and then turns towards. I take it there's like a bit of a bar somewhere.
Well,
seeing if there's any-
you can go inside, and inside there is a large kind of dining space, as well as a small kind of bandstand stage that currently stands empty, with a bar that runs across the right side as you enter.
Yeah, and he sort of peers back towards the others and goes, Brannan, so what does your last look like again? We said red hair, tall, and obviously no mustache.
Yes, quite a bit taller than me, or, well, a little, and quite dark red hair. And Brannan will actually start looking around, see if he can spot either her or anyone from the group.
Yeah, Durgus would do the same, obviously, to try and look out for the woman described.
You can both give me perception checks.
Okay. Blind.
5 and an 8.
Can't actually believe it.
You look around, quickly just getting kind of to grips with everyone who seems to be sitting in here. It has that natural, dark, smoky tavern atmosphere, which makes things a little bit difficult, and you do your best to avoid just walking up to someone's face and staring very closely at them. But very quickly, you guys reckon that nobody that fits the description of Brannan's sister seems to be here right now. As you're looking around, the elf behind the bar peers up at Geronimo, who I assume is standing awkwardly since he didn't join in. So, what do you want then?
Geronimo kind of is going to lean across the bar. I'm walking up to it now after he's been called. He's going to push himself up onto like a stool or something and kind of look up, and he's going to sort of like sort of lean closer towards the man and goes, I would like some wood carving tools.
The woman with her short blonde hair will look down at you and frown slightly. Some wood carving tools? And you
please.
Came here?
I don't know where to go. There's some youth said to come to this place.
I think they were having you on, mate.
They were having me what?
Having you on.
I didn't go anywhere. Oh, okay. Oh, were they? Okay. I sure hope not, because that's rather mean. I'm just a pleasant old gnome.
She gives a little snort of laughter at that, before peering up at Durgus, who cut in. I assume you're all together then?
Aye, we are. Actually looking for my friend here. And he sort of goes to nudge Brannan. Probably a little harder than he expected. I take it, what beers do you do?
Oh, a couple.
And he sort of squints as he peers towards the sort of kegs at the back. Because I've got proficiency in brewer's tools, would there sort of be any he picks out to be nice ones?
There's a fairly good-looking dwarvish stout back there. Based on the name that you can see attached to it, you think that's a fairly reputable name.
Yeah, and he and seeing this, he goes, "Oh, that's not bad." And he sort of eases back and goes, "Are you lot all ale drinkers?"
We get all sorts around here, really. Lots of different flavours and tastes, you know?
Aye, well, and he sort of peers towards the others. So you feeling drinks or not?
If you're offering, I'm not going to turn one down.
Well, I mean, it would be nice to drink something other than water for a change.
No, yeah, exactly what I was thinking. And he goes sort of slap Brannan on the back of the back, quite jovially. I'll have 5 of those, please.
She gives a nod and quickly makes her way off to pour your drinks as you settle yourself down at the bar. There is kind of a pause, for a couple of seconds, 30 or so, as you wait for the drinks to turn up, and eventually the mugs of the stout are tapped down onto the surface with a loud rap, expertly avoiding any spillage, as the wood elf looks up to you, Durgus, and goes, 5 of the stouts, that'll be a gold piece, please.
Yeah, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls forward a single gold piece, which he slides along. Though sort of bundling through his pouch, he adds a few more coppers just in case. Take those for yourself, and it's not exactly charity. As I said, my friend's looking for his sister, and he goes to nudge Brannan again. Could you give her a description?
Oh, yes. Sorry. She might have been with a group of 4 others. Red hair, little taller than me, similar face. Might have gone by the Trail of Ancestors if they used their group name.
She nods her head in thanks as she takes the gold and the few coppers, listening carefully as you give the description as she thinks for a moment. Oh, well, of course. Yeah, no, that human lass. I can see the resemblance now. Yeah, they were here.
Oh, fantastic. When were they last here? Are they still here?
Not too long ago. Don't really know what happened to them. They went to visit old Odich.
Odich?
Odich
Sorry, I'm new.
Odich Boto. He's one of the farmers. Living out, she gestures kind of outside the door, just the other side of the village, one of the nearer ones to the outskirts. Went to visit old Odich. He's been in a fairly strange mood recently. They said it was something to do with some research of theirs or something.
Oh, well, thank you for the information. Did you say just on the outskirts of town?
Yeah, just walk that way, go past the lock. Can't miss it. Straight down, and it's the second farmhouse you'll come to, not first.
Oh, well, I'll probably head there a little later. Thank you so much for your help. Did you say it was only a couple of days ago that they were here or something?
Oh, I can't rightly know. It was longer ago than that, but recent. Certainly weren't months ago.
Well, thank you all the same. And he takes out a silver coin and places it in front of her, at least as a thank you.
Oh, you are mighty generous. She takes the silver as well and pockets that, seemingly quite pleased with her haul for a little bit of information. Whilst you're sitting there, you guys openly carry your weapons, don't you?
Yeah.
No, yeah, Baron would as well.
Yeah, that's fine. She gives you a quick look up and down before pausing and going, You're in... Well, your sister, she was in the business of research and looking into strange stuff, weren't she?
Well, archaeology, but yes, I suppose that's accurate.
I'll take your word for it. Do you deal in some of that strange stuff too?
Well, I mean, yes, I suppose. Do you have something you need sorted?
Not so much. It's just I've got an odd fellow staying here at the moment. He's been here a while. Dwarf by the name of Margarin. He's just been having a bit of a weird time recently. He's caused no trouble. She raises her hands as if to defend him. Caused no trouble and been nice enough, but he just seems to be getting a little bit more distant and odd. Only really comes down around dinner time to get himself a meal, then he vanishes back upstairs again. I'd appreciate if you could just have a quick word with him and see what's up. I've tried doing it myself, and he's talked to some of the locals, but he doesn't talk that much to locals. I think he needs a stranger. He's not local himself. Shoe salesman, as I understand it.
Shoe salesman? Well, I don't mind having a chat with him. Did you say he's upstairs?
Yeah, but he don't unlock his door during the day. As I said, you'll only really catch him in the evening.
Well, I don't mind having a chat with the guy.
There's no
what
rush.
did you say his name was?
His name's Margarin.
Margarin.
No rush. He's been mighty fine. It's not like he's tearing the place up. He looks really sad, you know?
Not a problem. You've been helpful enough. I don't mind doing that.
Just before you go off to help some other patrons, can you tell me where I might find somebody that works with wood tools?
Some of the farmers might, she says as she lifts up a finger and starts to chew on one of her nails. Some of the farmers might. They got to clear stumps and stuff off their land. Otherwise, the lock has some general goods and supplies, though it's not a shop, so there's no standard list of things. Otherwise, She just shrugs slightly. Folk?
That was useful. And he kind of looks back to the others and kind of like hides his head and shakes his head at them, and then kind of looks back towards her and smiles. Thank you. And he kind of gets off the sort of stool and trots a little further away from the bar.
She is very unhappy. Such blatant disregard for her amazing advice.
Nice.
That was IC, by the way.
Oh, of course. Wait, have we all got stout now?
Yeah, Dirk's going to take his ale.
Yeah, you've all got a stout.
Okay, yeah, Geronimo takes his stout before he heads away from the bar. Kind of sips it.
Baron will lift his before turning back to the barmaid. This Margaret, you say when he comes down for food. Is there any specific time you do it, or is it just when the sun's going down?
He normally turns down after sunset. Normally, roughly. There's no. I mean, we've served them food now. If you're interested, she gestures through a small door where you can see kind of inviting wisps of steam rising out of.
Oh no, that's fine. It's just the type that kind of hide away. I imagine the moment he would go back in, his room would be locked again, so we would need to catch him. I suppose when he's gathering his food. So
she nods her head.
Or we can just go knock on his door now. I mean, what's the harm in that? And with that, he'd sort of take the ale and sort of not really letting anyone stop him. He just moves off, taking a big old swig as he was to try and march up the stairs.
Geronimo's going to try and interject and put himself right in front of Durgus, like kind of like almost like a sort of a kind of small gnomish barrier kind of thing, T-posing right in front of him.
Shit. Durgus starts to tremble, sweat coming down his forehead.
Knees weak, arms are sweaty. Yeah, Geronimo stops him and goes, can we do my thing first? I don't want to go help somebody with some sort of strange things without working on something that I need.
Well, why don't you head out? It's still relatively light. I'm sure you'll be able to find someone, or do you need us to come with?
No, I don't need no chaperone. I'm a strong, independent gnome. Need nobody. I mean, if if Reginald comes, I'll make my way. And he kind of
I'll come with you, Geronimo.
I was just about to say Geronimo sullenly walks off towards the doorway, but no. As soon as Baron sort of offers, he kind of perks up and smiles at him and gives him a big old thumbs up, and then walks towards the doorway.
Yeah, and Baron will kind of try and chug down as much ale as he can before handing over the tankard, probably to Durgus.
Yeah, and Durgus sort of pours the remains into his own, quite happy, grinning from ear to ear as he then also just puts the tankard on, like the empty tankard on a nearby table.
Geronimo's going to finish his tankard before he exits.
Okay. So you guys go through the logistics of reappropriating your drinks to one another before splitting yourselves up. Durgus and Baron and Geronimo making their way up towards the lock. Durgus and Brannan remaining in the tavern. I assume to go upstairs and see if they can get a hold of Margaret.
Yep.
Yeah.
Durgus and Brannan, we shall start with you. Okay. You are informed by the Wood Elf owner that it is the first door on the left as you go upstairs. As you go upstairs, you find yourselves in a fairly dark, dusty corridor that has a number of doors leading off of it. The first door on the left looks like pretty much all the others.
Yeah, okay. So sort of coming to this, I assume, closed door.
Yes.
Durgus, he sort of peer towards Brannan, give him a bit of a nod, like, let's do this, before turning towards the door itself, and he knocks on it 2 times quite firmly before sort of calling out in Dwarvish. Goes, is everything all right in there, laddie? We're new to town, and some people are telling us that they're worried about you. Just checking that you know everything's okay.
There is no response to your knock.
I think she said something about him needing some help with some strangeness, so I don't know. What was his name again?
And he sort of peers back. We've heard that you're having issues with strange things, Margaret. I said we're the type who can help with that.
There is still no response to your questioning.
Brannan's gonna just lightly place his hand on the. Is there like a handle or a latch or something?
There's a handle, or a kind of a turn handle, with a quite obvious lock mechanism that's been built into the door. As you try the handle, it kind of rattles, and it's clearly been locked. Okay. In fact, no, you'd be able to tell this without a check. As you kind of turn it and move it as well, very faintly, it rattles a lot in the lock, but you can feel that it rattles into something heavy, as if something has been pushed up against the back of the door as well.
He'll quickly take his hand away again, and then just maybe moving closer to the door. Go, look, we'll be downstairs. I think if she was right, the lady at the bar, I might be able to help you. But just come see me. I'll be the man in the big hat.
Right, well, and he sort of peers towards Brannan now. Because, I mean, if he's, not responding, he may be dead in there.
She did say he wasn't very chatty. It might be a case of he just pops out later.
Yeah, Durgus, he's not really the type to leave things like this, so he's gonna sort of bang twice, a bit more firmly this time. He goes, look, friend, we're gonna have to come in and make sure you're not dead. At least, give us a sign that you're alive.
There is still no response to your investigation.
Well, I mean, even if he was a shy chap, at least he's something now, surely.
Look, I mean, if it turns out that we need to panic, then we can always come out later when he doesn't come down for dinner. But until then, I suggest we just leave him to it.
Even that, look, I mean, people don't go quiet for no reason. And, I mean, last time we stayed in an inn, there was a room where a lot of people have been kidnapped. All I'm saying is there may be a trend.
No, I'm not denying it. I'm just saying he might be being quiet because he's scared of us. We are banging and rattling. We're banging and rattling at his door, and he doesn't know us.
Oh, I mean, a dwarf likes a fellow dwarf. I mean, it's companionship and all that. I mean, he may be shy, but I can't imagine he's that shy. And he goes, and now he would actually go to grab the handle and give it a twist and try to give it a bit of a push to see if it was unlocked.
Nope, still definitely locked. Rattles on the lock, and again bumps into something heavy behind the door as well.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not saying anything, and he sort of reaches down and pulls towards his hand axe. But he could be in trouble.
Look, if you want to start breaking down doors, that's up to you. But I think we should wait downstairs.
Fine. Look, we'll wait until the time is for him to come down. If he doesn't come down, then I'll come up here with this. And he sort of raises the hand axe.
That's fine. How about this? Just to bribe you as well, I'll buy you around.
Well, I'm not going to say no to that. He says, smiling as he quite happily now puts the hand axe back down. He sort of goes in to press his ear against the door quickly, seeing if he can hear anything inside.
Give me a perception check, please.
16.
Okay. You place your ear up against the door, and luckily during the day, whilst the tavern is certainly populated, it is fairly quiet, at least compared to what you would imagine the evening might be like. Having that moment to listen and see what you can hear, you believe you can faintly hear the sound of air moving, as if someone was breathing, very low, very gentle. Certainly no stress or someone breathing their last. It probably is habited. There's probably someone in there, but that's about all you can hear.
Yeah, and he slowly sort of peels his face away. He goes, well, I can hear him breathing at least, which is reassuring. Let's go back downstairs with the others.
He might just be a deep sleeper, Brandon says as he starts walking down the stairs.
Yeah, and Durga sort of peers back, looking at the door briefly before following him down.
Okay. And as you return back to the tavern proper to have that drink that Brannan offered, we shall jump to Baron. No, not Baron. Yes, Baron. Yes, Baron and Geronimo.
You got it right. Yeah,
I did. Yeah, I couldn't believe it myself. As you clamber down the short rise that the tavern sits upon into this kind of natural bowl, in which you can tell in the center of the village it's actually been dug out a little bit to form these natural kind of almost steps that allow for seating for a small stage that's at the very bottom of the bowl. It's creating this kind of natural amphitheater in the center of the village. Clambering up the other side of this bowl towards this large rectangular building, you find it to be seemingly one quite large communal center point. The place is quite busy with people going in and out, though obviously not tens or hundreds. This is just a small village. And through doorways and arches, you can see a number of desks, most stacked with papers, with books. Some are rooms filled with boxes and storage areas and things like that, and you are freely able to walk all the way through the actual building itself into the center of the building, where there is a rectangular courtyard that's actually open air, and inside of which there are a number of officials, mostly dressed in these strange uniforms that are made or are patterned in the same way that the heraldry is, with that black and yellow checker pattern, with large armbands that have the badger on. They seem to be directing people either to goods that have been stacked high, clearly sorting out the rationing of food. Some are organising what looks to be some kind of martial drill with what looks like to be just this kind of volunteer militia band, and standing in the shade of a very large canopy that's been set up, you spot an individual who you assume might be the leader of this village. He seems to command respect, this male tiefling, with long, curly, flowing, deep red hair that is a very similar shade to his crimson skin. There is only the faintest poking of horns jutting from above where his ears are. And he gestures from side to side, pointing at people, but not shouting at them, just speaking very quietly to the people around him, who then run off clearly to do his bidding, as this quite charismatic individual just seems to command the space around him, fully in control.
What was it you were after? Was it like carpentry tools?
Yeah, you know those the things that you kind of like a wood carver's tools. That's what they're called.
Baron would nod to that before trying to have a look around to see if there was anything on display or any kind of idea of where they might find it.
Yeah, Geronimo will look as well, kind of peering around.
Certainly looking around, there are a number of people who might be able to direct you. They appear to be in some kind of official uniform. Otherwise, there's a few stalls that have like equipment and things on top of them, but nowhere that is like directly set out as a shop. It might be a case of ask until you get the right answer.
Yeah. All right, Geronimo, not seeing anything directly in front of him, is going to walk up to one of the official-looking people. He's going to prod them in the leg, and then go, "Excuse me, can you give me some help?"
As you do so, a female human turns to look at you. Kind of almost very short red mohawk head. She has in one hand a bundle of parchments. She looks down at you, surprised for a moment that you just walked up and poked her leg, before she leans down slightly and goes, "Aye, what can I do for you?"
Is there any reason why you're leaning down?
Smaller than me.
I'll take a few steps back.
Geronimo, clearly upset by the fact that someone's leaning down towards him, kind of waddles back a few steps and goes,
Yeah, could you direct me towards somebody that might sell wood carving tools?
Woodcutter's tools. We might have a few in storage. You could put a requisition form in. Sorry, but who are you?
The name's a Toast.
What, like the bread?
Yeah.
Awful strange name, friend. Don't think we've seen you round here before, Toast.
I just arrived.
Arrived from where?
I came from Norcliffe.
Oh, Norcliffe. Her demeanour seems to pick up as you mention Norcliffe. Oh well, that's all right then. For a second, I thought you were one of those hounds. Well, we can probably sort you something out. I can go take a look in the back for you, but seeing as you ain't a member of the Badgers, then she shakes her head slightly. The price is going to be pretty high.
Can I not be an honorary badger? Because obviously I'm not a hound.
Oh, well, you'd need to speak to Captain.
The Bigsy's here?
No, someone else, Geronimo.
Oh, okay.
She frowns at the mention of Bigsy, like, who the hell is that?
Wait, it's not that guy. Geronimo kind of nods and goes,
Oh, okay. Well, you let me know the price.
Oh, yeah, of course. And with that, she turns, wanders off towards one of the fairly atriums, where she's gone for about a couple of minutes. You're just going to wait.
Geronimo's going to look towards Baron now and goes,
How much do you think small tools are going to be? There's no way it's going to be more than 27 gold, right?
I'm not going to lie to you, Geronimo. I don't really know the value of things.
You don't?
He just kind of shakes his head.
What about the value of your own life?
That's not measured in gold, though, is it?
Exactly. So you do know the value of things.
Well, not when it comes to gold and coins. He kind of just holds his very pitiful handful of 5 silver and 5 copper in his hands.
Geronimo's going to look at it and kind of prod around at it with his finger and goes, yeah, that don't look like you got so much.
He kind of just shrugs to that. I suppose if it's not gold, you can usually offer some kind of service or a trade, perhaps.
Oh.
As you have this conversation, Human wanders back out to you. In her hand, this bundle of leather wrapped up. She places it down on a desk nearby and unrolls it to show you that it's kind of like a protective casing for the 3 tools that are inside of it. There is a fairly large single-edged knife, gouge, and a small saw that are tucked away inside. She just shows you, clearly indicating that she has the components of a set of tools before rolling it back up. And so with the tariff for non-members, that would be 5 gold pieces.
5 gold pieces?
Go ahead.
What about somebody that's as cool as a cucumber as I am?
Give me a persuasion check at disadvantage.
No! The cool as a cucumber would have been so good.
That got you a disadvantage.
Yeah, I know. You're horrible.
Yeah.
I actually have it ticked. Let's go. Go on, baby. That's not bad.
With an 8?
8. No.
Okay.
Damn it. That would have been good if I had got it breaking. Anyway.
Okay. There's a pause, as you say, for someone as cool as a cucumber. And she frowns, and then briefly takes this small kind of stylus that appears to be made out of a dark, chalky material and goes, so that will be 6 gold then? Briefly steps in and just scribbles over the note, changing the 5 to a 6.
Geronimo looks defeated.
Okay, 6 gold then.
She nods, smiles happily, and accepts payment if you would offer it.
Yeah, Geronimo's going to give us 6 gold.
Takes it quite happily, turns back to her little note, rips off the bottom of it, and places it inside. And there is your notice of payment to show that you have paid for these objects. There you go. And she offers you the bundle of woodcarver's tools.
Nice. Great. Well, he's got that.
Yeah.
And then I need to put that in. Woodcarver's tools.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's enough. Thank you so much for your help, and have a lovely rest of your day.
You too, and try to say cucumber less.
You don't like cucumber?
She just frowns.
Okay, well, see ya.
Let's get going, and Baron will kind of corral Geronimo out like a small child.
Geronimo is easily corralled out by a big meaty hand Baron.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to do, or are you heading back to the town?
No. Heading back.
Just head back, yeah.
Okay. So you reconvene, 4 of you. Natara decided to stay on the ship, explaining her absence. Back into the tavern. Just as I assume Brannan is buying that drink for Fergus. So that would be 2 silver pieces.
Okay.
For another one. Settling yourselves down at a table together. Take a kind of second here to discuss what your next steps are, so I can prep that break. But then after you've decided what you're going to do, we'll take our break.
Yeah, Geronimo kind of comes in and goes towards the table and goes, "Guys, I think I found it. I got something that's going to be real good. You're going to see what it is."
Oh, so you managed to get your tools then?
Yeah.
They weren't pricey, were they?
They were a little bit pricey, and I did not help.
Well, no change from the usual then. He sort of snickers to himself. Still, we're glad you got what you after. We didn't have much luck with Mr. Angry Pants up there. He sort of gestures up the stairs.
What are we going to do then? We're going to wait until he comes down? I thought that was the best kind of move.
Yes, I think we're just going to wait until he shows his face, and then we'll have a chat.
Right, that's if he shows his face, and if not, well, he sort of goes and gestures frantically to his hand axe, smiling a little bit. I mean, the man he clearly locked himself in, barred the door, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Brannan turns and just looks you dead in the eyes and goes, "You just want to break down a door, don't you?"
Well, it's not every day someone gets to do that sort of thing, you know.
Or
plus, it adds a bit more drama to it.
Or maybe you could let me just unhinge the door. I got wood carving tools now.
You can't get to the hinges unless you're on the other side, surely.
I am a very powerful, scary gnome. I can do it.
With a fantastic description of himself. Scary, powerful. I think we can take our break. So we shall take 10 minutes or so, go and sort out our drinks and our bladders, and we shall be back to find out whether or not Geronimo is in fact a very powerful gnome, or if he will be defeated by some door hinges on the other side of a door. Okay?
Hell.
So we shall be right back.
Hell yeah, dude.
And we are back for part 3 of Pact the GM, coming back at you live from here, the interwebs, as our player characters settle down for a few drinks and to wait out the day, awaiting the arrival of the dwarf Margrin, whoever he might be, well, the shoe salesman, to help out the wood elf who runs the tavern they're currently sitting in, correctly. So the day passes fairly peaceably. Especially as you spend a lot longer just kind of sitting around not making trouble. The people around you almost seem to acclimatise to the fact you are here in Badgerton, and whilst you still get some odd looks from folk who are distrustful of strangers, most people seem fully accepting of the fact that you clearly aren't here to cause trouble, you weren't sent by their arch enemies, and you have spent money in them, which is always a good thing. By the time the evening rolls around, the torches are lit, candles are set up on the tables, the smells from the kitchen turn from kind of soft, salty seafare into more hearty broths and breads. And business actually picks up as people who work during the day filter in, proceeding to spend all of the coin they've earned on all of the drink they can stomach, and probably a little bit more than that too. Everyone give me a round of perception checks, please.
Okie dokie.
Oh boy.
Mm.
5.
7.
It's a day of fairly poor rolls.
Brannan's had 2
Speak for
pints
yourself,
at this
Buckaroo.
Fucking 18, boys.
Yeah.
18s from Geronimo and Durgus. So both of you are the ones to spot the fairly stout-looking dwarf who comes plodding down the stairs eventually. You were told to expect something a little bit strange, but this dwarf doesn't actually look very well. He is thin in the arms, despite being quite broad. His face is a little bit more gaunt than you would expect, and his lips are quite cracked, and he continues to lick at them almost anxiously as he pushes his way through the crowd. People make their way out of the way fairly quickly, not wanting to engage in any kind of conversation or extended contact with the dwarf. As he approaches the counter, raps on the wooden surface very hard. The wood elf behind the counter spots him, nods her head as if, oh, you again. Briefly, her eyes flash up to you guys at the table. She makes her way back, clearly to find some food, whilst Margrin, you assume, waits patiently.
Hey, Big D, do you see him? I think that's our guy.
Hey, he says, he sort of shifts off his little stool and begins walking over towards the man. He sort of aims to sort of squeeze in beside him, if it makes any sense. Sort of peering first towards the wood elf and then towards the dwarf himself, and goes, "So you are alive then?"
As you speak to Margrin, he actually flinches away from you, grabbing a hold of the counter as his eyes take you in very quickly. He lets out a sigh as if relieved, before peering anxiously back to where the wood elf has gone to collect some food. Oh, yes, no, I'm alive.
Wait, so we came knocking earlier and you didn't see anything. You're a bit of a deep sleeper.
Oh, yes, no, sleep during the day I do.
Aye, well, that explains it. What are you, nocturnal? Up late, studying or something?
Oh, certainly up late, yes.
Not to be nosy or anything, but what you doing up there?
Sorry, was Geronimo going to do anything there?
The drone's going to kick Brannan at this point under the table and then point towards where Durgus has just gone off with Margrin.
Brannan kind of looks over and goes, What do you want me to do?
The dwarf's over there, and you got all the fixes for supernatural stuff.
Yeah, I guess, but I'll be honest, the man seems a little twitchy. I think one at a time. Maybe Durgus can bring him over here.
Okay.
Certainly he looks very twitchy, and as he continues his conversation with Durgus, I was sleeping for the most part during the day, but at night I try and do my best to still sleep, but, hearing things.
Hearing things. You get back nightmares.
Something like that. His hands are now rapping very quickly on the table as he's anxiously waiting for return of the wood elf.
Yeah, and seeing that this man was quite nervous, Durgus would sort of lean in, lowering his voice as he speaks in their shared tongue. He goes, "Look, friend, she said that you ain't having the best of times. We're adventurers, to put it lightly, strangers to these lands, and we like to help people when we can. We've dealt with some dodgy things before, so if there's anything we can help you with, just say. I mean, nightmares, what exactly are they of?"
As you say all of this, he pauses, his fingers still working the wood terribly, clearly very anxious and nervous. Before he sighs, "Well, if I'm upstairs, have you dealt with ghosts before?"
And he sort of perks an eyebrow. Goes, "Ghosts? Well, not personally, but I'm sure some of the others have." And he goes now, and he sort of points with his elbow back towards the table, of course, implying that he's with the group over there.
Mm-hmm. He seems to accept this, though clearly now in a state where he very much could flee at this point. He's looking very, very anxious, very, very nervous. Clearly weighing up whether it's even worth staying for his dinner.
Why, you've got some sort of haunting?
Don't say it too loud.
And he sort of nods his head at that and goes, "Well, if it's a situation you've got, we could come up and have a look, if that's all right with you."
As you say that, the wood elf returns, carrying a bowl with a stew. There's a couple of large sausages bobbing away inside of it. He grabs a hold of the bowl very quickly, places some gold on the table and nods his thanks to the wood elf, before immediately turning and making his way back towards the stairs as quickly as he can. Over his shoulder, he says, "All right then, come up."
Yeah, and obviously hearing this, he'd quickly sort of follow the man, peering back towards the barmaid and giving a bit of a nod, like, we're here, before gesturing at the others for the table to join him. It's like, I think he wants us to follow us, or follow him.
Yeah, and I'm seeing him kind of gesture for us all to follow. Baron would lift himself up from the table and follow along.
Assuming
Geronimo would also come.
Assuming you all go upstairs, Margarin is waiting by the door, as he almost seems to hurry you inside, waiting his hand for you to step in. As you do so, the room is very, very cold, unnaturally so, and he closes the door behind him, flicking the key, which is still in the lock, and then taking a small dresser, dragging it across the wood with this loud scraping sound as he pushes it up behind the door. The room itself is fairly spartanly adorned. There is a single bed pressed up against one of the walls. Behind it, there is this large kind of saddlebag style thing, except designed more for someone to carry over their shoulders. And in each of the packs, you can see there are a number of different styles of shoe poking out of the side. One of the chest of drawers has some clothes sticking out of it, though based on the smell, you believe these clothes probably haven't been washed in a very long time. And looking at the stains and stuff on his own clothes, this guy has been up here, excluding himself from society for a little bit now. He goes and parks himself down on the floor just in front of the bed so as to not spill any food. He sleeps and begins to use a spoon to just kind of ladle the stuff into his mouth, eating almost like a prisoner, as if this was his last meal.
Yeah, and sort of feeling the cold, and seeing this man almost shakily shovel this food into his mouth, Durgus would at first peer around, seeing if there's at least anything visually which seemed out of place, like anything floating or, anything kind of weird and spooky.
Certainly nothing like that. Everything seems to be exactly where it should be, other than the cold kind of sense of dread that seems to linger in the air. There's nothing else that's kind of lying around that shouldn't be there. There's nothing floating in the air that shouldn't.
Okay. So not seeing anything at first, he sort of wraps his arms sort of around each other, like sort of rubbing them to like keep himself a bit warm. So, what exactly is the cause of this situation? I mean, it's certainly nippy in here.
I don't really know. I was visiting, and I chose to stay here. My son one night, she just don't let me sleep.
I mean, why don't you leave? If she keeps you awake.
Follows me wherever she goes. Wherever I go, she's always there. Tried staying in another building, she's still there.
Was there a certain day this started? I mean, did you acquire anything?
Day I turned up.
Just here in Badgerton.
He nods his head.
Do you know much about this person causing you trouble?
No, I don't know. She appears every night while I'm trying to sleep. Turns up, wakes me up, starts wailing. I mentioned it, and no one else seems to hear it. It just seems to be in ear, but she wails. Something awful.
Hearing the wailing, would Durgus know anything about that? Like, I'm not sure what check will be needed.
That would be an Arcana.
Yeah, I'm not going to even attempt it. He's gonna sort of perk an eyebrow and be like, wailing, like screaming at you.
He nods his head.
Not ideal. Brannan, do you know anything about this sort of thing?
Could I roll that Arcana?
Yeah, of course.
18.
I mean, ghosts linger for any number of reasons, and their behaviour is normally indicative of what the reason is for their remaining. The wailing is clearly meant to interrupt, disrupt, frighten this dwarf, which means it clearly has perceived some kind of slight or wrong on this dwarf's part. And it's trying to draw some vengeance, trying to inflict some suffering. It's trying to do something against the dwarf specifically. Clearly not violently, more seemingly out of sorrow and guilt and some kind of reminder, but though obviously the dwarf says he has no idea what it is doing, so...
Brannan will come a bit closer and sit down, maybe on a nearby table or chair, whatever you can grab. You said you didn't know who this ghost was.
The dwarf nods his head as he continues to spoon food into his mouth.
Normally the way these things work is that if they're haunting someone, they know them, and you've, well, for lack of a better way of putting it, somehow pissed them off.
I don't know this ghost, though. I don't recognize her.
How about anyone has anyone related to you that maybe didn't have the best reputation died recently? Maybe
No.
they did it.
I mean, I don't know. I've been here weeks now. I'm from New Haven.
No, the only other thing I can think of is if you look like someone that's did something. Where did it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
My ma always said I look pretty good.
Oh, I'm not talking. Doesn't matter. I just meant you might have someone who looks like you. Maybe we can ask nearby, see if we can find out who died recently.
I can describe her for you.
That would be helpful.
Sure, obviously she's very pale, ghost, but she's got long, flowing hair, comes down to about her waist. She's got a quite petite nose, very small, quite high cheekbones, very sad eyes.
Is she wearing anything particular? Or was it just like a jewelry or anything like that?
She has one of those uniforms on, girls that work here.
What, like the badges?
Just like the ones that work here in this tavern.
Oh.
Skirt down to the ankles, blouse tucked in, that sort of thing.
Well, that saves us walking about a bit, I suppose. Brannan will stand up again and go and look to the others. I think at least with that we can start. If you need any more help, we can always try and sort it out.
Oh, she.
You been murdered the lassie, have you? He says, being quite blunt.
Jesus.
As he was in the middle of talking, suddenly blurt out your accusation or your question. Sorry, and he almost seems to backpedal on the floor, as if to get away from you. What? No, no, I didn't murder no one.
He squints his eyes. He tries to gauge the man's reaction to see if there's a bit of flustering there.
I mean, you can give me an insight check.
Here it comes.
Actually, Fogma.
And that one, that's a 5 overall. This is the Pact of the GM.
Hate you.
I mean, he is kind of flustered, but you've just asked him very bluntly into his face and quite suddenly whether he's murdered someone. So, someone being flustered in that position is not necessarily a sign of anything.
Yeah, and he just he sort of nods his head. I just got to make sure, see how people react. Well, I mean, I'm no sort of ghost expert, but surely it's got to be, the stories say that things tie people in places when they die, right? And if she's angry at you, then maybe it's related to this room. I mean, they just started in this room. Was this when it first happened?
It was. I was in this room. When I moved to other places, I let some of the villagers let me stay with them. She followed me there too, but they didn't hear her either.
Right, well, I mean, where exactly do you stop with these sort of things? I mean, we could maybe see if there's a body beneath the floorboards. And he sort of says this, directing his question towards Brannan mostly.
Again, it depends on the spirit. Some you burn the body, some you have to see why they're here and sort out any problems. It really depends.
Well, I mean, we may as well start somewhere. And with this, he actually leans down, taking his hand axe, and if able to, begins to try to almost pry one of the floorboards up with the edge of it.
Whoa, wait, no, there's no need to do that. We know she works here, or possibly did, so we can start by just asking.
Well, you go questioning, and I'll see if the body's buried anywhere in here.
What if they ask us to pay for the damage afterwards? Are you going to pay?
Well, we can knock it back in, it's fine, it's not going to do anything to it.
Is Geronimo in the room?
I would.
Yes, of course.
I was going to say,
Of
I
course.
assume he is.
Okay, Brannan looks at Geronimo and goes, "You've got that wood crafting set. Why don't you help him remove the planks so at least he doesn't break them?"
I thought you'd never ask. Of course I helped my buddy out. Geronimo's going to walk over to Durgus and pull out his new fashionable wood carving tools. And although he wouldn't be wood carving, he would be trying to use the tools as a means to help him remove the planks without it sort of breaking, sort of in a way that they could be put back together.
Okay. Give me an intelligence check with your proficiency, which is what you would get.
Okay, with proficiency.
Yeah, so it's a saving throw if you have it as proficient there, or just make the check and add 2.
Cool. Nice. 17.
Okay. With the Geronimo's help and some very upset looks from Margrim, Durgus, you managed to get one of the boards up off of the floor in such a condition that you could probably hammer it back in fairly easily. But you do make a great deal of noise doing so, as you have to kind of take nails out, peel the board back, unstick it from the other ones that it's kind of stuck down next to, and from the beams that creates the very thin floor above the room below. As you do so and you kind of pull it up, there is a little puff of dust. That place clearly hasn't been cleaned in a very, very long time. It's under the floor. And absolutely no bodies whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's like a little crawl space you can peer down into, or is it literally just like a solid base beneath it?
There's a little crawl space.
Yeah, he's going to sort of quite awkwardly position himself. He sort of turns his head and tries to get his eye beneath the thing. trying to let some of the light in as he sort of peers around, if able to, seeing if perhaps there was anything beneath the little flooring.
Give me a perception at disadvantage.
Okay,
I believe.
in a thing called love.
Not
15.
bad.
13's alright.
Except-
Oh, 13. Yeah, sorry.
Disadvantage. You peer around, you get a fairly good look. It's obviously an uncomfortable angle, but you've got a little bit of light down there. There looks to be probably... in fact, no, you find a couple of copper pieces. There's 2 coppers down there. They fell down the gaps in the wood. But other than that, there's just a lot of dust, a few rats, and some bugs that seem to crawl over each other. Absolutely no bodies whatsoever.
Yeah, and he slowly but surely seems to be reaching down, picking up a few things, and bundles them into his fist before leaning back up. Right, well, there's no bodies, but there's some treasure. And he says, he's sort of groaning as he shows the 2 coppers on his palm, which he quickly pockets.
Geronimo is in a cough quite loudly in the general direction of Durgus and offers his hand out, having been helping him with the floorboard.
Yeah, and Durgus just like looks at him quite confused and goes to shake his hand.
Geronimo kind of like looks back at him weirdly and goes, "Split the spoils with your first mate."
Oh, yes, and he this goes down as sort of takes one of the copper and hands it over.
Hell yeah! I get
before peering back up and essentially attempting to put the plank back in place.
Yeah, reapplying the plank won't require a check. It'll just take a little bit of time as you've got to kind of hammer it back in. Brannan, meanwhile, were you going downstairs to investigate with the staff?
Yeah, so Brannan would head downstairs, and if he can find that woman that you talked to before behind the bar, he'll go up to her.
And Baron, are you going with Brannan, or are you sticking with floorboard?
I think he'd probably be sticking with the floorboard boys.
Okay. Brannan, you go downstairs, and you get a very strange look from the wood elf behind the bar, who kind of puts her elbows on the side and looks at you as if questioningly as you approach. So, what are you doing in my room then?
Wait, what do you mean your room?
I own the tavern.
Oh, don't worry. With the other 2 have decided that they wanted to see if there's a dead body under. Don't worry. You won't notice any difference when you go back up there.
Her eyes are narrowed accusingly, but she's still listening, waiting for whatever it is you actually came to say.
Look, I talked to your man up there, and he seems to think that there's a ghost after him.
Ghost?
Yes, that's what he said. Has there been any women that work for you who have died recently?
Oh, not recently. There was a death a few years ago. They weren't working for me then. I wasn't a proprietor then. But I remember just before I picked this place up, there was a death.
Oh, would you mind telling me about it? I know it seems a bit odd, but it might solve this man's issue.
Well, as I said, it was before I picked the place up. It's the reason I got it so cheap. From what I remember, it was one of the poor girls they had working with the drinks. She was stabbed behind this place.
Okay. Do you know? Did they ever find out who did it?
I'm not sure, but there was an investigation by the captain at the time, and I imagine his files are still up at the lock.
Well, I suppose that's our first stop then.
It'll be public record. All investigations are.
Oh, well, convenient. Well, in that case, we'll probably be heading there. I'll make sure they fix any problems they've caused upstairs, I promise.
You do that. She just nods her head as if like, yep, deal with the situation.
He nods and then turns, going back upstairs with the rest.
You return to find the floorboard safely reattached, looking around the edges, maybe a little bit more worn, but pretty much certainly how it was left, other than that.
Yeah, so no problems, Hatsy. We fixed it. No problems, no payment. We're all good. We're all good.
Find any dead bodies?
Yeah, there were some dead bodies, but they were from the bugs.
So not really what we're looking for.
Nope.
Baron is going to turn towards the dwarf. So does she ever say anything, or is it just this wailing?
She tells me her name sometimes, says she's Marleone. Says,
Brandon's gonna blink, look at the dwarf, and go, I could have done with that when I asked about her earlier.
well, I was going to say, but your friend accused me of killing her.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
Well, what does Marleone mean to you?
I don't know.
Yeah, and he turns his direction now towards Brannan.
Well, I mean, when I was asking about the woman that died, her name probably would have pointed a few fingers straight away.
Well, I mean, do you know what Marleone is? I mean, or is it just a name?
No, it's just a name. Otherwise, I'm just going, woman that died. It leads points it, if you know what I mean.
Well, what do they have to say downstairs?
She's the tender downstairs. She said that someone died just before she got the place. Stabbed, it seems. And there was an investigation. Apparently, all the details will be public, so we can go ask at the captain's office, I think.
Right, well,
I think I might know where that is. Is it some sort of is it in the lock?
I imagine so. She wasn't specific, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, because I saw there's a very important figures with lots of papers. Kind of seems like the sort of place that you kind of keep those sort of things in record.
Fits the bill.
well, it seems like the next step. Though I don't really know why it, relates to Mr. Haunted here. You don't have any family who lived there, do you?
No. I travel around a lot. My family are all back in New Haven. Not many of them left, though. Life of a shoe salesman don't find you procreating much, I find.
When did this first happen? Was it when you first came here?
I first got here, aye.
And did anything else happen that evening? Anything? Were you playing with a knife? I know it's a stretch.
He looks very confused as you suggest playing with a knife.
Just on his shoes.
I was trying to sleep. That was it. I turned up, settled myself down. It was fairly late. I had plans to go and sell some of my stock down that amphitheatre. And whilst I was sleeping, I hear this terrible moaning and this wailing, and it wakes me up with a horror. And in the corner, there she is, floating a foot off the ground.
Wait, this room?
No.
And he points.
He nods his head and then points over in the corner by the window. Tried to move room straight away. Whichever room I stayed in, she followed. Tried a different house. Some of the folk round here were nice enough to let me stay in a spare room. She came there too.
And no one else has ever said that they've seen her?
They ain't even heard her. She brings down a racket.
Well, it's clearly just you she hates. Which, I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of this. Shall we, head on over to this log place? See what these records say.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. What time of day is it, by the way?
It's just gone past sundown. Since that is the time you were told Margaret would go and look for his food.
Fair enough. Well, maybe tomorrow. It seems a bit late. I'm not sure if they'll be even around.
Aye, well, we can go. I mean, I'm sure they'll just be closing up, but we can ask, have a peek around. Hopefully it'll be fine, and if not, well, it may be best if maybe we sleep with you, Margaret. Not in that sense, but, just make sure she don't go up.
He is blushing at the mention of being slept with. The poor dwarf who hasn't slept for a while. Before he shrugs slightly. You can stay if you like. I mean, just be screaming.
Aye, well, not much difference from the usual then. And he sort of chuckles to himself before realising hey, you know what, that probably doesn't make much sense. But still.
There is a very concerned look on Margaret's face as you suggest that there's normally screaming around you when you try and sleep.
I don't scream when I sleep, just an FYI. Geronimo reassures everyone.
Anyway, your snore buddy sounds like it. Oh, let's head on over quick, see if we can catch him late.
Oh, just before we go, Margaret, is there like maybe a temple in town or a church?
There's an oratory.
Oh, well, I suppose that'll have to do.
Well, yeah, it's very small. The orator of the harms. Oh, and there's a little shrine to Malarial as well.
Thank you. I'll have a look around for them.
Just
I didn't know you were a
Malarial?
religious man.
That was two people talking at once.
Sorry.
I'm going to need Jake first and then Jensen.
No. I was making an OSC comment. Don't worry.
Okay, references.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he sort of turns towards Brannan and goes, I didn't know you were a religious man.
Oh, I'm actually not especially so. It's for... I need some equipment, and temples and churches and the like normally have it, so I thought I might try.
He sort of perks an eyebrow at that, like knowing that temples and churches aren't usually the shop selling sort, but he shrugs it off and begins to make his way quite quickly out the inn, if possible.
Absolutely fine. So, departing, where are you headed to first?
Well, Durgus would sort of elbow Geronimo goes, so where's this lock at?
Yeah, it's you go out of the tavern and you turn up past the this little like dip, kind of looks like an arena, similar to where you and Smallsy fought.
Just show us the way. He says,
Yeah, I show you.
It's a short walk across the amphitheatre up to the rectangular building. The lock. The smaller kind of doorways and entrances that perforate the outside have all been locked up. However, two large open gateways are still open, allowing entry directly into the courtyard at the centre, where a couple of figures are still standing around, clearly in attendance to the public building. As you step inside, one of them, who is sitting with the other, seemingly playing some kind of dice game, pushes himself up. It looks to be a short-looking halfling who wanders on over towards you, slouching, hands in his tunic, as he looks you up and down, clearly disappointed to have been distracted from his game. He flicks some silver hair out of his eyes. Says, "So, what do you want then?"
Oh, well, not to be a pain in the ass, but we're helping someone in the inn, Margaret. He's been haunted by a lass who was apparently killed a while ago. We'd like to have a look at their records, if that's all right.
I have a story. Records? What records in particular? We don't do ghost records.
It's some barmaid who was stabbed outside the back of it, Marleone, I think.
Oh, a criminal investigation. Oh, we do have those records. Hang on, one moment, Algast. He kind of calls over his shoulder as he waves at the other figure, who just gives a little thumbs up back. The halfling gestures for you to follow as he leads you off to one of these still open alcoves and kind of covered areas. As he's walking, he mutters, kind of audible for you, though not necessarily looking for a response. Bastard human's gonna cheat me, I know it. Try to get back and keep an eye on mine. He continues to mumble about checking on his dice when he gets back, as he leads you into this small office space. He begins to work through some fairly well-organised drawers, each that has a date on it. Do you know how long ago the attack was?
Well, she said it was more than a few years ago, before the current tavern owner owned the place.
Oh, that makes it a lot easier. He immediately seems to discount one end of the sets of drawers and works his way down. You said Marleone, aye?
What's the name?
He opens a couple of the drawers, begins flicking through very, very quickly, well practiced at this part of his work, before eventually coming across a fairly thin little kind of almost postcard-sized wallet of papers. Pulling it out, flipping it open, and flicking through it. This is it. Public record. He turns and holds out the bundle to you. However, we can't let you take it off-site. We need to be able to maintain our own records. If you'd like to make copies, that's obviously fine, but can't take the originals, I'm afraid.
That's understandable. And he takes it and immediately hands it over towards Brannan, like you're the reader type.
Yeah, Brannan will take it and start just leafing through, seeing if he can spot any information straight away.
Yeah, it appears the bundle is made up of a variety of different sources, all neatly organized in this very standardized form of the source of the information, the content of the information, a kind of brief breakdown of kind of like the bullet points of it, and then any actions taken as a result of the information. And then at the very front of the bundle, there's just kind of like an overall operations kind of card indicating what the state of it or what the results of everything was. The card immediately tells you that that this is to do with a murder, and that the murder was declared inconclusive. So there was no criminal found to have or found guilty of having conducted it, or nobody at least was arrested or tried for it. Additionally, under that, it notes that persons of interest, in particular, was one Aurelio Spine. Flicking through the notes themselves, you find a number of different accounts that could be useful. The first is a number of eyewitness accounts that suggest what may have happened that night. There are gaps and holes in what people saw, making it a little bit difficult to get a perfect rendition, but from what you understand, the night of the attack, Marleone was working at the tavern when she suddenly, for no reason seemingly, left through the back. For a little while, nothing happened, and then after that little while, people heard screams and shouting from behind the tavern. Patrons then said that they'd ran outside to see what happened, and she was found stabbed to death. Another interview revealed that she had recently left her boyfriend, who was Aurelio Spine, and additionally, a final interview with an individual called Old Mag revealed that Old Mag had prescribed a number of medications to alleviate morning sickness to Marleone.
Mm-hmm. He leafs through it and jots a couple of things down and goes, can I keep this for now, or do I have to leave it with you?
Well, I said you can make some copies. He gestures at a table where there's a small candle in a little casing burning away. But you can't take that.
Of course. Is there an Aurelio Spine still in town?
Aurelio? Oh, no, he's supposed to have jumped ship some years ago.
Oh, well, I guess that's one less thing. And this doctor who's prescribed some medicine, she's still around?
Doctor? Who you on about?
Here, and it's Meta, I've forgotten the name. I didn't write it down quick enough.
Old Mag. You just wrote Old Mag's name. He goes, oh, scary Old Mag. Oh, she's still around. Yeah, runs the old herbalists.
Scary Old Mag?
Well, just Old Mag, but you call her Scary Old Mag. She loves it.
Okay.
Just how old is this case file?
That one, he gestures at that. That's a few years. Hang on. He goes back and checks the thing. 3.5 years.
All right then. I was just double checking. I mean, if she was old back then and she's still old now, then she may be immortal or something. But we're fine. We got 3 years as magic.
Oh, I don't think she's immortal. She's just Scary Old Mag. She's always been Scary Old Mag.
Do you know where she lives? Obviously, I don't think Herbalist will be open by this time.
No, I doubt it. She's on one of the tracks leading out of town, heading westward.
Just that general direction, or do you know the house specifically?
Follow the road heading westward, and you'll be able to spot it. It's the one covered in all the vines and stuff.
Right, well, could go pay her a visit. He sort of peers back towards the others.
It works for me.
And it might be a little late. We could alternatively stay the night with Margaret and then go in the morning.
We'll go check on Old Mag and then obviously go back and have some beddy bites. I'm sure that obviously he's just woken up. I don't think we'll want to be going to bed too soon.
Yeah, I'm keen to go see this scary old lady. She sounds kind of like a lot of fun. I mean, not to say that you guys ain't fun. I just want to see the scary lady.
Since when were you the brave type? He sort of chuckles, elbowing him in the stomach.
Did you just say winging him in the stomach?
Like elbows him in the stomach.
Oh god! I was
Like
about to
punch you, like gut punch.
Yeah, you like a proper. That's what I just had in my mind. Just
Punches
like
him straight in the stomach, wings him, knocks him out.
When were you the brave type? Ah!
Yeah.
That's my job.
Yeah, Geronimo kind of gets elbowed and goes, "Oh!" and then looks back towards Big and goes, "I'm really brave, I swears."
Right. Well, thank you for your help, Mister. And he sort of offers a hand, like finish the give us your name, finish the sentence.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, Mr. Gould.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, Gould.
He shakes your hand, kind of seemingly taken aback that you were interested in his name, as the GM had to flounder for a name there.
Nice one.
NPCs that are just there to help. Before checking that you were finished copying and then waiting to be handed back the files so he could place them back in their respective home. And assuming that Brannan hands it back,
sorry.
he would take those files and place them back where they belong, leaving you with whatever copies you chose to make. Before nodding, going, so anything else?
No, I think that's it for us. At least for now.
Oh, fantastic. Have a good night then. He begins to kind of semi-corral you out.
Well, I mean,
Brannan will
like
leave.
your sister.
What was that about my sister?
No, him
No,
about his
he's
sister.
talking about mine.
Oh, you better watch out with folk who do that, friend. He wags a finger at you, Brannan.
Right. I know where to go for that, Douglas. I'll probably do it tomorrow. I don't want to bother the man during the night.
So you say. Well, we'll be off then. Again, yeah, quite promptly turns and it just like storms on out.
Geronimo follows and kind of leans closer to Durgus and goes, "Hey, you got to be careful with those people. They think you're saying things when you're not. You got to be careful."
What do you mean, seeing things?
And I mentioned the cucumbers earlier, and one of them was like really upset about it.
Why'd you mention bloody cucumbers?
I said I'm as cool as a cucumber.
I mean, they're not really like particularly cold, are they?
I guess they are in certain climates.
Right. Well, and he sort of completely sort of like waves him off and it continues to sort of walk on.
Yeah, Geronimo kind of like lags behind as Durgus just kind of like abandons him.
Okay, so you guys enjoy your friendly banter as you make your way down the western road, leading towards the edge of town, where you can quickly spot the fairly short square building that must obviously be Old Mag's. The building itself, you can just about make the kind of almost wooden spine and structure of the building, but the rest of it is just covered in like turf. There is grass that seems to have grown up all over it, vines poking out of the grass, flowers sprouting up as if like a bad haircut. The whole thing, like if you didn't know what you were looking for, could honestly from the back just look like a hill. And as you wander towards the kind of front of the house, there is just immediately this scent of a multitude of different flowers that just crashes into you.
I mean,
Hey,
she's certainly the nature fanatic.
all those bloody
Seems
roots are
like-
gonna break up all the house's stones. I mean, she's insane. First off, he says,
seems like
sort of
place
frowning.
at least.
Well, either way, let's go knock. Brannan will walk up and peel himself through all the undergrowth and try and find a door.
There's a door kind of faintly visible. As you give a knock on it, some of the turf falls off from the roof and just hits the ground. Knocking fairly loudly, you hear kind of shuffling from behind the door, and then a wooden slat slaps back, kind of a hunched older woman height, and this single eye bulges out to stare out at you. Yes?
Hello, I'm sorry, could we bother you for a moment? We're looking into a bit of trouble.
Seems I already are.
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Well, you asked if you could bother me. You're bothering me.
Hey, do you remember our last named God, what's her name? Marleone.
The eye bulges out even further as the face kind of tries to peer out to see who's shouting from behind the door.
How many of you are there?
There's 4 of us.
5 or 4?
4.
4.
Which is less than-
4.
I was 4 voices. I don't hear a 5th. All right.
And with that, the slat shuts very quickly and the door opens to reveal this very stringy looking human woman, her hair tied up in a very scraggly grey bun, clutching in one hand, almost Scrooge McDuck style, small platter with a candle on it, her other hand holding this nightgown so that it doesn't drag, while she stands next to the open door and stares out at you.
Come on in then. Come on.
Brannan will start walking in.
You're letting all the stench out.
Mag, wasn't it?
Old Mag.
Old Mag.
Old Mag.
What happened to young Mag?
She was about 20 years ago.
Only 20 years?
My boy.
She leans forward as you step in, Geronimo, getting not like lowering herself down, but just bending so far forward that her face is just above yours.
My boy, I am only 37 years old.
Geronimo mistakes old Mag's bending over as a sort of strange, weird custom for a greeting. He does the whole French cheek kiss thing. He goes, yeah, whatever you say, pleasure to meet you.
Oh, she smells like daisies. It's quite nice.
Oh damn.
Yeah. She frowns though, confused at this, before almost having to stretch out as her back clicks. She then turns as you will step in and closes the door behind you. The interior is... Imagine Dexter's Lab meets traditional hovel. In one corner, there is a kind of bed that looks like it's been made up fairly comfortably for someone who is trying to soften the strain of sleeping on their old bones. But the rest of the room is covered from floor to ceiling in just jugs and beakers and jars and glass bottles and all manner of poultices and powders and potions and just everything you can imagine, all being decanted from different plants that are being boiled and wilted down and essential oils that are being drained and stuff like that. It's like there's a constant process of almost alchemically reducing natural ingredients that just seems to be constantly happening. And when she said stench, she clearly meant stench, because even as you're standing there, you can see the slow build-up of this thick, almost thuggy atmosphere of the different products that are just given off naturally by these processes. It just seems to fill up the air and give that kind of light-headed sensation.
What exactly are you? Some kind of oracle, a medicine woman?
I like plants.
I can see that.
So I deal in plants.
So, like a herbalist?
Yes. Like a herbalist. Exactly like I'm a herbalist.
Oh, there you go. That's... I'm sure you do very well.
I do fantastically, thank you.
Hey, well, I said we're here asking about a gal you gave some things to a while back, 3 years or so. Do you remember a Marleone?
Marleo.
Morning sickness?
Oh, there's a few that turn up with that, Sonny. But you wouldn't know about that, would you? She leans forward and tries to squeeze your cheek the way a mother does to a child.
Hey, well, I know of quite a few people who died. It's quite sad, actually.
From morning
not-
sickness.
What she means, Durgus.
And he sort of blinks and then peers towards the toilet. Oh, right, well, it's Marleone, either way. What did you give her exactly?
Normally what I give everyone who has morning sickness.
What exactly is that?
Take some nettles, mix it in with a little powder of wormwood, take up some dry root and turn that into a paste. Then they got to rub that on their tummies and put that in their breakfast. Do that for... She starts to count slightly. She goes, 3 mornings a week. That should relieve some of the symptoms.
Can you? Oh, sorry. Can you remember much about the woman?
Which one? You asked about morning sickness. Told you there's a lot of them that have that.
Marlione. She worked at the tavern. Probably quite young. We're not sure about a lot of details.
Young pregnant girls at the tavern. Oh, that's all of it. She seems to giggle at her own joke before going and parking herself as she sinks into a very thick mattress that is set atop the wooden bed. No, I don't remember much about her. I think I remember when it happened, though. A few years ago now, wasn't it?
Yes, she was stabbed behind the tavern, apparently.
Oh, the poor thing. No, I think I remember that. Don't remember the girl very well. I remember there was someone who came forward, a witness, came and spoke to me. Said she'd seen, said she'd seen something awful. Went and gave some account to the captain, and then a day later recanted. Said she hadn't actually seen it.
Oh, do you have a name?
No, Sonny, too long ago now. Too long in the tooth. The brain's all a scatter.
Well, what does that say?
Said she saw a woman do it. All she had to say. She ran off Halford way.
Well, I mean, it's something.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, it actually just makes it more confusing. Do you know what the boyfriend? I think his name was Aurelio Spine. Do you know anything about him?
That mess. He was always a bad sort round here. One of those tricky types. Got himself lots of jobs and never really did them. Got paid anyway. Good riddance to him. Left a while ago, I think. Rather funny looking fellow too. Kinda short. Little bit thin, especially for a dwarf. Quite gaunt looking cheeks. She kind of pokes at her own cheeks, pressing them inwards. Like that. Very much like that.
Well, I think we may have found Mr. Aurelio. And he sort of peers back towards the others, obviously seeing if they caught on the same way he has, before peering back. So, are there any sort of side effects to these, obviously the paste you give him? Apparently, she went a bit strange and walked off the back before she was murdered. I mean, does it, cause her to do things she wouldn't usually do?
I suppose, since we're messing with feelings, someone could feel kind of strange, but cause them to wander around on the dark? No reason it would do that. It's just to alleviate sickness, stop the nausea and stuff like that. Hell, it'd be good on you too if you felt sick, with an hangover or something. Just happens to work for morning sickness.
And what exactly is it again, which goes in? You said something wormwood?
Elderroot, wormwood, nettles.
Sorry, I'm just making a note of that. Would Durgus know how easy those sort of plants are to acquire?
Give me a nature check.
Okay. Oh my god, my nature's awful.
Time to shine.
My face when my face when the ranger has bad nature. Actually, I would have taken a survival as well, so I'm happy for you to keep the 17. But even honestly, even with a 16, pretty much there. Those are pretty common natural ingredients to find. Like, you don't find them every time you go for a walk, but they're not exactly that rare. If you know the right kind of environment, you can normally find a fair amount every time someone went out for a trip. You yourself may have perhaps used them every now and again for other kind of properties that they possess.
Cool, man. Well, also hearing this, he sort of peers back towards the others and goes, "Well, I think our Mr. Margren may have been another person in his past."
It's either that or he has strong resemblance to him.
Well, I doubt that. I mean, you don't really get many gaunt dwarfs about.
I don't know. I feel like why would he bother coming back? And if that was the case, why would he want us to look into it? Surely he knew that we would find this out.
Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But the fact is, clearly he didn't kill her. If it's some sort of woman who did it instead, maybe he's come back to try, pay his dues or something. Not entirely sure.
Possibly.
Maybe the best way that we can find out is by being there ourselves. Ask her,
So she speaks to us. I mean, from what he made out, it seems that even only he can see it. But still, I mean, I guess we'll just have to see. Thank you, old Mag, for all of this.
You're welcome. Now, could you get out my house, please?
He will. I'll be sure to. And he quickly sort of backs away, coughing a little bit as he exits the door.
Yeah, I assume you all leave.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Old Mag seems delighted that you've left her to her evening as she shuts the door behind you. Where to next?
I think we're going back to the inn and back to Margarin/Aurello.
I think he is Aurello. Dun dun dun. Questions. Heading back to the inn, step inside, and you immediately get a very concerned look from the wood elf behind the counter. She notices you there, quickly tells another of the waiting staff that he has to take over the customer she was just serving, and she hurries over to you, wiping down her skirt as she looks up. You're dealing with Margarin, aren't you?
Aye, we are.
Could you go and check on him? He's making some weird noises.
I guess so.
He was doing
What's wrong?
He was making some shrieking noises earlier. Tell him things to leave him alone.
Oh, shite. And Durgus very quickly bolts through the thing. Not pushing her out the way, but, like running quickly past her as he aims to bolt up the stairs and sort of bust into the room.
Yeah, certainly running up the stairs and getting to the door. You're going to need to give me an athletics check.
Oh, shit. I believe nothing called love. Every time I say that, I roll awful. Stop.
You need new
No.
phrase, man.
Oh, it's not the best, but a 15?
15's not bad. You don't manage to knock the door off straight away, but you hit it pretty damn hard, like a little dwarven boulder rolling into it. And immediately you feel the lock that was built into it, which was, rickety to begin with, get jilted open. The only thing really stopping the door is the dresser that's currently sitting behind it, but you manage to bunch that further back, far enough for you to be able to see into part of the room. The room itself appears to be totally dark with no unnatural forms of light, except for the fact that over Margarin, who's currently cowering in the corner, pulling a sheet up almost to cover himself, as if trying to hide, whimpering and whining very loudly, there is this ethereal blue light that just seems to dance across him, as if there is some other kind of thing in casting that glow.
And his Durgus obviously seen this strange sort of ethereal light. Probably not having dealt with ghosts much before, would stand there, sort of his eyes wide, like, "Oh shit, this is really happening." And he clears his throat. I imagine the others sort of arriving behind him. He goes, "Leave him alone, Marvelion."
As you say that, you can see Margarin look up from under the covers, spot you, and immediately leap for the door, doing his best to just haul the dresser away so that the door can open fully. As it does so, you can now see the other half of the room, in which, floating, as mentioned, about a foot off the ground, is this terrible, bedraggled, sorrowful form of a woman. Her hair lank and hanging down around sharp features and a small nose. She almost seems to hang in the air like a corpse without the gallows. The only sign that this has any kind of sentience is the slight twitch of the head towards you as Margarin moves to become visible. Her mouth is wide open as if mid-shriek, and yet you can hear nothing.
And Durgus quite awkwardly sort of raises both hands and peers back towards Brannan, like, "Oh God, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a go anyway." It's like, "Look, you may have got him confused with someone else. He ain't the one who killed you. He ain't you. I don't think he's your boyfriend either. Was it Aurello?"
At the mention of the name Aurello, give me a wisdom saving.
Just him or everyone?
Just him.
Boomer Durgus incoming.
I can't wait.
Oh, actually, fuck.
Yes!
Yes! Fuck. No
Boomer
way.
Durgus.
I would really like for you to roll me a...
Yes!
No!
Yes! Boomer Durgus has come.
I knew it was time. But please don't. It's a 3.
How old is Durgus right now?
He is. I don't know if I actually put it in my bio, but I think he was like. Oh Jesus! I need to actually double check this one.
Make a rough guesstimate. You don't need the exact age, but
I was gonna go like sort of like mid to late 20s, like 26. Let's go 26. Why not?
okay. So you're still a fairly young dwarf.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a pause as those ghostly eyes catch a hold of yours. And immediately something inside you snaps. There's a moment of fright. As you yourself mentioned, experience with ghosts is not something you really have. And certainly how to deal with them or what they can do is nothing you know about. And hell, this is a dead person. Like, this shouldn't be possible, really. But here it is. And as that thing snaps inside of you, you feel as if just the energy and the life and the positivity in you is being drained out as you see that face shift and distort, and slowly there is a whine that picks up in your ears as you begin to hear the scream and the shriek of this awful haunted figure. And as it does so, you feel your skin go a little bit slacker. Those looking at Durgus can see just faint hairs of grey pop into the ginger, which just loses some of its luster and brightness, and a couple of wrinkles appear around his eyes as Durgus, you age 30 years.
30? Oh my fucking god.
That keeps you still well within, active life of a dwarf, but you are no longer considered a young dwarf.
57, boys. Let's go.
You are now...
It's alright. This time we will fix the curse.
I'm sure you will.
Please fucking do. I will actually attack you.
I'm sure you will.
2 campaigns in a row, he's been aged.
Actually, Alex hates me. I generally swear.
Maybe I do. Still, yeah, this kind of happens, and for a moment, words are lost to you as you are frightened. I'd like you to add 1 insanity. And for the rest of you, I would say you guys probably need to do some actions here because Durgus is considered unable to respond. His life force is drained.
Okay, let me think.
Baron will step forward, seeing Durgus kind of being drained of his life essence, shall we say. He kind of holds both his hands up towards this ethereal figure. How can we help you? We're not trying to cause any trouble.
Okay. As you do so, the eyes shift, this time over to you, Baron, though you don't feel the same horror. Having not mentioned
Is
a particular individual. Yes.
Is fear the one where I need to run away as much as possible, or just can't do anything?
No, that would be like turned. Frightened is, mechanically speaking, you can't go towards it, and you also have disadvantage on ability checks and attacks while within sight of it, but you're not really in combat, so those mechanics don't really come into play. Essentially, you can't move closer to it willingly, but you don't have to run, and I'm just using this as kind of as a pause to let other people.
Okay.
Geronimo is going to peer around the corner of the door. He is not going to go inside. He's just going to peek in. Seeing the ghost, he's going to kind of like cower a little bit further away from it and back around the door.
With the cowering, And with the question from Baron, the ghost shimmers ever so slightly closer, not even seeming to gesture as it just drifts. Baron. It reaches out with one long arm and gently almost seems to try to brush its hand down Baron's cheek. As it does so, Baron, there is a momentary flash in which you feel fear, horror, agony, sorrow, and then it's gone, all the emotions seemingly that this ghost had in its final moments. Before the eyes turn downwards in anger, in rage, the mouth shuts, and Durgus, you no longer hear the shrieking, and it seems that Margarin no longer does so either, as he takes his hands away from his ears, blinks, tears in the corner of his eyes, and then just pushes himself back into the corner. The ghost continues to just stare at Baron as if waiting for something more.
Who was it that hurt you?
As you say that, Ghost stares its daggers at Durgus for a moment. It's back to you, Baron.
Okay. Would you like us to help you? Are you stuck? Do you need to be freed?
As you offer to help, it then turns to look at Margarin, the hands at its side clenching up into fists of rage as the mouth almost begins to pulse as if it's trying very, very hard not to begin shrieking and wailing again. Staring bloody murder at the other dwarf.
I'm assuming that's him. And Baron would kind of gesture towards Margarin.
The ghost seems entirely enraptured with just looking at Margarin right now.
Durgus would sort of be scampering away at this point. Obviously, he's felt this sort of strange, almost negative energy flowing through him. His eyes sort of wide with panic and fear, and for once he seems to be wanting to sort of cower and move away as he clambers and sort of pushes his way through the door, and essentially just like presses himself to a wall on the other side, trying to sort of get his bearings. Quickly, he sort of calls back. He goes, "Bloody don't let it touch you!"
Baron would look towards Durgus, kind of not like giving him a bit of a rude gesture, like dismissing it, but kind of like a "don't worry" kind of thing. We heard that he left straight away, but we've also been told it was a woman who hurt you.
At the mention of him, the boyfriend leaving, and a woman having hurt this ghost, her head turns back to you, Baron, a look of confusion, now kind of over the top of that rage, a sneer of disgust as if this idea is just wrong in every sense of the word.
Yeah, Baron just kind of nods to it. I'm sorry, we're only going off what the officials have told us.
As you say that, the ghost turns away from you, pirouettes quite literally on the spot, and drifts back towards the corner of the room, reaching up to their wrist. They seem to pull something off and then throw it at the ground behind them, and hitting the ground silently and bouncing with no sound whatsoever, a small bracelet would rest, shimmering and wisping, having been now taken off from its host. Written in Dwarvish along the top of it and hammered in, really with some craftsmanship, you can see the name Aurello has been put in, and underneath it you can see that the name Marleone has been put in as well, and it's there for a few seconds and then it dissipates and vanishes, and then you notice that it reappears on her wrist.
Okay. Yeah.
Dr-
No, carry on.
Geronimo, kind of having sort of been watching from the corners of the door, kind of looks at the display and kind of tries to speak towards Baron. He goes, "Hey, you don't think that thing's anchoring her to here?
What thing? What do you mean?
The
name?
thing, no, the thing she just took off."
Potentially. Is there somewhere we can find that bracelet?
The ghost turns, lifts up the wrist again delicately, gestures at the bracelet, and then points at Margarin, grips her hand as if angry.
Margarin.
Her head shakes as you say Margarin, and then she slaps the bracelet again.
Baron would turn towards Margarin, clearly not kind of speaking towards the ghost. Orello.
He doesn't respond. Say that. In fact, he looks very confused.
We may need to prove you don't have it.
What? Prove what? I don't understand.
She is under the impression that you are the person who killed her, and judging by the description we've had, it would make sense how it could be confused. I think you need to prove that you're not this person to her.
Ow, I don't know how.
Oh, do you have any bloody tattoos or anything? I mean, did he?
He, at the double question, he goes to answer one, pauses as you throw out the second one, and then just looks at himself like, I don't know.
Do you think she might have just been saying that the original guys got it?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to be a bit careful.
Why don't you ask in a kind of roundabout way if the original guys got it?
He would look back towards the ghost of Marleone. This man here, he would gesture towards Margarin, isn't the one who hurt you. He left. We can find him.
Give me a persuasion check at advantage.
Ooh, 17.
It's a pretty spicy persuasion, not lie. The ghost turns back towards you, a shimmering glint in the eyes, as this almost malicious, malevolent smile drips onto her features. She floats once more over towards you, lowering herself down now that her feet are on the floor, and in fact she's about a foot shorter than you are. She reaches up and places her hands gently onto your shoulders, though you feel nothing. As she leans up and looks into your eyes, and you just hear faintly in your mind, "Will help."
Baron would look towards her. Yes, we will help. I will help. And they'd look to the party.
Yeah, Geronimo's nodding like profusely from the doorway.
From around the corner, you just hear the scraping of metal against metal.
With that, Marleone kind of leans to the side, is down towards the curled up form of Margarin, then looks back to you, Baron, and again in your mind, here, he is not the one.
He is not the one. His name is Margarin. He's a shoe salesman. A cobbler, I believe they're called.
There's no response to the description of who the hell he is. Just kind of a slight nod at the acceptance. What you said is she's got the wrong person. She lets go, though, as I said before, you don't feel anything. And she drifts back before rising up that foot off the ground again, so that she's almost at eye level with you. And then she vanishes, almost seeming to dissipate like a fine mist that becomes finer and finer until it's impossible to see, and the room falls into the dull glow of the moonlight from outside the window. Margaret is still curled up, his head now buried almost underneath a piece of furniture, as he seems to just be kicking to try and hide further and further away.
And almost as she just dissipates, you'd hear screaming from around the corner. Take this, you floating bitch! As he lobs an axe through the air, I imagine completely missing and obviously wedging itself into the wall.
Yeah, there's that loud ka-chunk sound as the axe hits the wood of the wall and just like kind of shivers in the beam.
And obviously seeing that he didn't make his contact, he quickly sort of charges in, like his other hand axe raised. Like, where'd she bloody go? Where'd she bloody go?
She had the wrong person. And with that, Baron would kind of walk over and try and kind of pull away at the furniture and things that Margaret would be hiding behind that before offering him a hand up. It seems she got him confused with Arello. One thing I am concerned about is we've agreed to help her, and I am not as well as versed in ghosts as some might be, but I'm hoping that's not anything bad.
Agreed to help her. Did you see what she did to my bloody beard?
And she'd do much worse if we didn't. Not just to you, I don't think. And he'd kind of gesture towards Margaret.
Margaret has managed to weasel his way under the bed and is now currently cowering.
You can come out now. She's not here anymore.
Yeah. What did she do to you, Bigsy? It looked like you got real scared, and then I got a bit scared, and then I stayed by the door.
It's like crazy ghost stuff. I don't bloody know. Like, felt like she was eating my heart out.
Maybe if we help her, she'll. I don't know.
Well, that implies she won't do the same to this other fellow, and worse, she would bloody kill him.
Whilst you're talking about this, Margaret is slowly pushing his way back out at the direction from Baron that he could re-emerge. He peers around with these very sunken, tired-looking eyes, then notices the ghost is gone, sees you arguing about what you're going to do next, and he pushes himself out as best he can. You mean she's gone? You dealt with it.
She's gone for now. She shouldn't be a problem for you anymore.
Oh, by the name of the gods. He kind of collapses forward, letting out this big sigh, that kind of moment of release of all pent-up anxiety and stress and horror just dropped in a moment. You watch as he almost seems to unfold for a moment. Takes a big sob and then sits himself back on his haunches. I cannot begin to say how grateful I am to all of you.
Well, if you do have any other troubles, let the barmaid know. I imagine we'll be here for at least a few days, so.
Oh, I'm going to leave as soon as I possibly can. I didn't want to bring that thing home with me, but I'm done here. I've spent too long already. But if you ever run into me again, 10% discount on all my shoes. I've got some nice calf skins. I get them in fairly regular. And I'll put a good word in with my banker in Newark.
Yeah, no, Baron kind of smirks to that. Well, get a good night's rest and safe travels home.
God, I'm going to.
Hey, it was our pleasure.
Jerome is going to quickly exit the room as well now.
He just looks
your bloody self. Look what she bloody did to me.
He just looks exhausted as you depart, Durgus complaining about the few grey hairs in his beard as you make your way out into the hallway. And I assume down to a table downstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you park yourself downstairs. As you re-emerge, the wood elf runs over, places her hands down quite firmly on the desk, very businesslike. So? It all sounds better up there now.
She won't be bothering him anymore.
Oh, you mean
You mean there was a ghost?
Yeah, damn right
Yes,
there was.
It was Marleone. Believe she had Margaret confused with one of her past partners who, by the sounds of it, is the one who, killed her.
Oh, that poor thing. It's just horrific.
Yeah, but don't you worry, we fixed it. We're good fixers, us.
We've fixed it for now. We've agreed to help her. I don't know what that's going to entirely entail, but we'll deal with it in the future.
You've solved the problem, then you've done everything I needed. Have a round of drinks on the house, and some dinner. We'll sort that out too.
Geronimo's eyes light up at the mention of dinner.
Do you have any pastries?
We serve some of our dishes in pastry. What do you mean by pastries?
Oh, just the wonderful, beautiful creations of good bakers.
I think he means sugary kind.
Oh, I suppose we might have something.
Could I just try a little slice, a little teensy wincy morsel?
Sure. Suppose. Do you want the main to go with that, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, and for the rest of you?
Was anything food-wise? Just whatever you've got already on.
Okay, I'll just bring out the whole thing, and you can have it between you. All right, that'll be fine. And with that, she turns before waiting for an answer and makes her way back to the counter. There is a few minutes of kind of bluster and organisation before one of the waiting staff, a young male human in a fairly neat-looking tunic, wanders over. In one hand, he has this fairly large platter, which he sets down in the middle, or just slightly off-centre of the table, atop which there is this rectangular-looking, almost like box of pastry with an open top, and inside of which it's been filled with this kind of tomato and cheese mixture, making a very nice-looking tart. On the other platter, he puts it down, and there is this much slimmer, shallower-looking pie, inside of which you can see what looks like a whipped cream of some sort, a number of different pecans, and some kind of like crystallized sugar across the top. It's a pretty good looking spread, the kind of stuff you would expect more from a quality baker or chef rather than just kind of a backwater tavern, as well as a mug of the stout for each of you again.
Yeah, Geronimo's going to crack into the main course, kind of greedily wanting to eat something, but his eyes just never shift from this sort of sugary sort of pastry that has been sort of presented towards him. He's just like locked on it completely.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a sweet tooth, haven't you?
It ain't about being a sweet tooth, pal. It's all about the standards of living. See, I got a dream, and that dream one day will be to find that perfect pastry. And I'm going to find out who made it, and I'm going to open my own shop.
Damn your bloody pastries. He's going to slam his fist down at this. She just sucked out my life essence and we're sexting there like that's normal.
I don't know how to help you, man. It's...
Well, it's your some bloody concern. I mean, this is your sort of area of study, surely. He sort of flaps his hand over towards Brannan.
How long do you dwarves usually live for?
A few 100 years, as I remember.
Well,
Hey, it doesn't bloody matter. I mean, I'm going grey. I mean, I ain't no old fella. This she aged me pretty bad.
back home, a life well spent is 50, 60 years, so I haven't got that much longer left on me. It could be worse.
Well, it doesn't matter, but it could be worse. It still bloody happened. I mean, how do we do this thing?
Does Brannan know anything about undoing ghost curses or de-aging someone?
Give me a religion or an arcana.
Okay. Let's go arcana.
Okay,
17.
17, that's pretty good. So as far as you're aware, there are kind of two processes to it. You are looking at either dispelling the ghost, which normally involves resolving why it's here, which
naturally releases the life energy that it has absorbed, allowing it to flow back into an individual. However, not quite the same, but if you are able to conduct the ritual spell quickly enough, a greater restoration can reverse the effect. Though these need to be cast very, very, like, you've got 24 hours from when it happens for the greater restoration to kind of work. Otherwise, you just need to resolve whatever issue it is that's tying the ghost here.
Well, there's the quick way, but probably a very expensive way, and there's the long way, but the more likely to be actually doable.
What's the quick way?
We need to find someone who can cast a very strong spell on you, and it'll undo it. Preferably a cleric, something like that.
And what's the other way?
Get rid of the ghost. Get them to leave.
We can just
But that's
beat the
not
shite out of her.
Maybe that might just piss her off. With this one, it seems like the best option is to see what we can do to solve her problem, and then she'll leave willingly.
And solving a problem, means sacrificing this fella to her.
Possibly, he says, kind of shrugging. I mean, it depends, but yes, maybe.
Maybe it means making sure he's dealt with the proper authorities.
Well, I don't think she'll like that. I mean, clearly she wants to rip his heart out and do whatever she did to me, just 50 times worse.
I don't know. I mean...
And I bet you the only reason she did it to me is because she's bloody racist to us dwarves now.
I don't think she is, seeing as one of her past lovers was a dwarf.
Clearly pissed her off, and she's holding us a grudge. I mean, she was getting all antsy with bloody Marvin, whatever his name was, Morgan, and now she's doing it to me as well. I mean, she didn't do it to you, did she?
Yeah, but that's because Smallsy was real good with his words. You should. I mean, he was just fantastic.
Well, I did the bloody same, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Oh, it's a dwarf. I mean, we got the choice between helping a racist or killing her.
Durgus, how about this? I've agreed to help the ghost, be free of whatever's binding her here. And as part of that deal, I'll make sure that, whatever happened to you is also reversed. And he kind of holds his hand out to shake his hand. I know what you dwarves can be like with your grudges, shall we say.
Right, well, I'm dealing with my bloody grandfathers, and I don't want to pass this one to my bloody son, I tell you that.
You won't have to.
Right, well, you have to make a bloody promise, because, if this whole aging thing ain't reversed, I'm going to have to go on some sort of ghost-killing spree.
Yeah, and then Baron kind of pulls his hand back, spits in his palm, and then holds it out again. You have my word.
Yeah, and he spits in it and shakes it quite firmly. There's clearly some determination in his eyes, quite ready to become real-life Ghostbusters.
And with that as a hell of a deal, I think we can look at perhaps wrapping up this session and going through our after-session stuff.
Ooh,
so we shall close out the session with that wonderful deal made in the dreary tavern in Badgerton, and we can look at resolving all of our after-session stuff. So we will go through the things as we had before, which is bonds. Does anyone feel like they've resolved any? So we had some new ones this week because we resolved some last week.
I don't know whether it could be classed as being solved, but my current narrative one is I don't think I trust Geronimo. They'll need to prove themselves to me. And while I think obviously narrative ones need a hell of a lot of time, I think that can kind of be overwritten with the deal Baron's just made with Durgus.
Okay, yeah, we can overwrite that bond then. Maybe not resolve the bond, but we can overwrite it with something more pressing.
Because I kind of feel like there's not really any... I feel like Baron and Geronimo are kind of a little enlarged thing going. So I don't think there's anything...
Big cook, little cook.
Literally.
Be careful, Ben!
Yeah, that's fine. We can overwrite that one then. Does anyone else feel like they've got changes they need to make, or bonds they have resolved, or things they fixed?
No.
No.
Yeah, no, my short terms of Natara and my login narrative are basically intertwined. So
We spend a lot of time talking about stuff that isn't the.
yeah,
There was a great deal spent bonds. Well, not with the bonds.
Well, to be fair though, we have so much to talk about, so it's like, so how do
there
we?
is a
how
lot
do we
to talk
balance
about.
it?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. It's all good. But no,
Bonds are
overall,
there for when we run out of stuff.
True.
yeah,
very
Impossible.
true.
scraping the
Impossible.
barrel.
Possibly. You guys never run out of stuff. You're an inspiration to us all as role players.
Thank you, Alex. Finally getting the attention we deserve.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
because I spend absolutely zero time giving any of you any attention whatsoever.
Yeah, thank you. I don't remember last time you gave us any compliments, Alex. That's all I'm saying.
Just don't want those egos to grow too large. No, but overall, I think it was a really good session, and I greatly enjoyed myself. I hope you guys did as well. And I hope for the
Inspiration.
Inspiration.
I
Yes.